1.
Northwest Liberty News, picking the lock on the shackles of tyranny.
Machines are gonna fail, and the system's gonna fail.
The past is past, the future's now.
Don't look at me. I think these people are completely nuts.
Sometimes trouble just follows a man.
There is another organism on this planet that follows the same pattern. Do you know what it is? A virus.
Can't you stop your lips from flapping for 2 little minutes?
It's because I'm white.
I'm a man. I'm sensitive. I need to feel loved. I need to be desired.
I'm rapidly becoming a big underground success in this town.
It's a question of methods. Everybody wants results, but nobody wants to do what they have to do to get them done.
And now, coming to you live from Kalispell, Montana, brought to you by Northwest Liberty News, it's Montana Gazette Radio with your host, James White. So I'm your host, James White. This is Montana Gazette Radio. Thanks so much for joining me here in the broadcast, the 26th day of October, 2020. We're coming to you live here from Kalispell, Montana. If everything's working properly, we should be broadcasting on quite a few different platforms. All that will be centered very soon. Matter of fact, there may be some stuff there now on MontanaGazetteRadio.com, MontanaGazetteRadio.com, and there'll be all of the links will be there on that site here directly. Currently, today we're going to have Tom Millett here on the second hour, but this first hour we're starting early today because we are going to play this the video interview I did with Debbie Westlake over the weekend and her daughter, and a local foster parent here who's very familiar with the program, and says that this is, well, you'll hear the interview, and we are going to afterwards we're going to open up the phone lines, and there's some Montana legislators that are going to be calling in here to the show. And let me give that number out right now, 563-999-3617. And the lines will not be opened up until after this video I'm about to play here, right around 9:15 or so. So without further delay, this video is about 42 minutes long, roughly. I'm going to go ahead and play it now, and I'll be back after this video and open up the phone lines and take calls from legislators. So enjoy this interview with Debbie Westlake. Here we go. Hi, James White, Montana Gazette Radio, and as you can see, I'm joined here by Debbie Westlake and her daughter Kayla. This is a breaking story here that has been recently developed over the last couple of days. If you've seen the article that was published in the Montana Daily Gazette, and I can bring that up right now, you can see where Debbie's grandkids have been taken, and as the article states, Montana is recognized as one of the worst in the nation for confiscating children. They've taken Debbie's child, Ra, some time ago, and now taken her grandchildren. And we're joined, of course, by Suzanne Davis, also, who you see on the screen, who is a foster parent as well. So we want to welcome you, Debbie, Kayla, and Suzanne, here to the broadcast. Thanks so much for joining us here on Montana Gazette Radio.
Good morning, Jim. Thanks for having us.
You're quite welcome.
Thank you, Jim, for having us.
You're quite welcome. I tell you what, let's do a quick recap, Deb. You've been on my other show numerous times. Let's just state really briefly your story. You had your child taken by the state when I think you were ill when that happened. Now your daughter there, Kayla, next to you, as you see, has had her children taken. And I've had people on my broadcast that are fourth generation of having CPS come in and take their children and kidnap them and put them out in a foster care system. So we want let's start off with that, Debbie, just so we can get sort of a foundation for those that may not be familiar. You are running here in Montana for the House, of course, sir. But that's not really what we're here today to talk about. Is your candidacy? We're here to talk about the kidnapping that goes on routinely, as I cover.
Correct.
It. So please, Debbie, with that, please go ahead and set it all up for us and let us know how this all started. And then we can have Kayla jump in anytime and give her version of the events and tell us exactly what happened. Over to you.
Okay. So in 2016, I got sick and went to the hospital. I made a 5-hour ER visit. And while I was in the ER, CPS went to my son's school, removed him without a court order, without a warrant, nothing signed by a judge, and never let him come home again, not even for a supervised visit. Uh, it was a physical ailment for why I went to the hospital. I was very sick that morning, and they have twisted everything, trying to say that they're now trying to say that he was taken for severe mental illness, which is a lie. There's so much, I don't even know where to begin, Jim. So in February 2017, Rob was taken from school, or 16. In October of 2017, my parental rights were terminated by Judge Mike Menahan, who had said throughout the entire case, "This is the closest I've ever come to dismissal for lack of evidence. It's obvious you love your kid, would never harm him. You're looking out for his best interest." But after the 15 of 22-month cutoff was met, they terminated my rights. Same judge. So I have been very outspoken against this corruption in the system. I'm a family advocate here in Montana. I've seen numerous cases of families destroyed and erased by this department. So in an effort to be a voice for these families, I decided to run for House District 82. Let's skip forward a little bit. And my daughter has been in New York City for the last couple years, in a very bad financial situation. We've been trying to get her home for several months, but with finances and the COVID lockdowns and everything, it's been very difficult. Finally, well, in July 20th, I spoke to the agency where my daughter was working with it, and we did a household walkthrough of my house. It was via Zoom, and they said that they were going to help Kayla get home. Kayla and all three kids get home that weekend, hopefully Friday. That night, ACS in New York, which is what they call Child Protective Services in New York, at 11:30, showed up at her door wanting to see the kids. And they opened opened a case against her for neglect.
So this is after they said they were going to help. After
Yes.
they said they were going to help, that's what they do. They lure you into a false sense of security, so you get your guard down, thinking that okay, CPS is going to be helpful, and then the hammer drops, and they show up, and next thing you know, before you even know it, your children are gone, and sometimes you don't even know where they're at. Please continue.
Right. So they opened the case. That was the 21st of July. They opened that case. Kayla had bought her tickets around that same time to come home. I can't remember the exact date. And planning on coming home August 9th. And she come home August 10th or August 9th. And the first thing in the morning on August 10th, we informed ACS in New York where she was, thinking we're doing the right thing. Always, the right thing always comes back to bite us in the butt. They knew where she was. They had no problems with where she was. And then the middle or the end of September. What, Kayla? Go ahead.
The August 10th, I had court. And they tried to say that I ran.
No, the judge asked on that hearing on August 10th. He says, "Were there?"
The ACS tried to say that I ran, and the judge asked them point blank, "Did you file a warrant? And why did you not file a warrant the moment you found out?" And they didn't have an answer.
They said they did not want to pursue it.
Yeah.
Is what they said.
Why is that? So why is the my bigger question is, and we've talked about this, Debbie. I mean, I think we talked when this all started transpiring. You called me, I think, pretty quickly, and we've talked about this. My question is, why is New York involved in Montana at all? Why they have no jurisdiction here?
So no, because the case was opened in July, the end of July in New York. They sent and Kayla was here in the beginning of August. New York requested Montana to do an ICPC, And Suzanne, I don't know what those letters actually, do you remember what they stand for? I know it's like an interstate compact between children in foster care. I just don't remember what the exact letters stand
let's pause for a second, Debbie. We'll bring Suzanne in. Hi, Suzanne. Thanks for joining us here today on the broadcast. We appreciate you being here with us today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good to be here with you.
Suzanne, I just want to just set this off here because you are a foster parent. You are a well-recognized foster parent here for many years, multiple years. I think 16 years you said you're a foster parent here. And we're going to pop over to this article right here. In the beginning, it says, child advocates across the country recognize Montana Department of Health and Human Services is among the worst in the nation for confiscating children, often without court orders or probable cause. Suzanne, what do you think about that statement right there from your experience? Is that fairly accurate?
I think it's very accurate. I've been a foster parent in Montana for just over 2 years. I was a therapeutic foster parent both in Louisiana and South Carolina. This is by far the worst experience I've seen. I have not had a child yet in my home. I thought was going to come out better. I have had children removed from my home as a foster parent, and had a 15-year-old removed who called us mom and dad, who was in school, had a great job, had $1,000 in the bank, and she's 17 and a half now. They've removed her at 15. She has never gone back to school. She has no job, no driver's license. She's about to turn 18 in January, and she's been begging us to come home since the day she left. We hired an attorney. We couldn't get her back. So I would say this is difficult. I also had a child run away. We looked tirelessly for this kid. And as we're looking for this kid who'd been missing for dang near a month by then, Marty
and on the National Registry.
Yes, on the National Registry for Missing Children. Marty Vining testified in front of the subcommittee that there were no missing foster children in the state of Montana. That young man is in Utah right now in rehab, which I also didn't think was a possibility. So even as a foster parent, watching what's happened to these children has been heartbreaking. I do this because I love kids. Beyond being a foster parent, I'm a project management professional. I'm a six-figure person. I mean, I am a very well-trained, well-educated, successful person. I was on the phone when they removed Kayla's children. I have power of attorney from Kayla for those children. And I have never been so condescended to and treated as rudely as I was by Laura McCullough. She did not represent herself as being in the position she was, although I happen to know because I'd appealed to her for that 15-year-old's removal of so many years ago. And now I expect her back in January with no education, no driver's license, and no money. And I will spend the time to help fix the last 3 years that they've destroyed of her life. What's happening to Kayla's children right now is beyond comprehension. I begged Laura to let me take those children. I told her I'd be home within a day. I'd give up my six-figure contract. I'd be there. I'm a licensed foster home with an adoption level home study. And my husband lives with me. I have a psychiatric nurse, retired, my mom in the house. And all she did is say, I heard what you said. You were on speaker. I said, I knew I was on speaker. And what I said wasn't inappropriate unless you take it out of context. I have rights. We were trying to protect these children from going into foster care. Foster care is dangerous. As a therapeutic foster parent, every single child I had, every child over 12 and a half years was more abused in foster care than they had been in their original. So I'm very concerned.
So Suzanne, someone that you boots on the ground, a foster parent, are saying here on this broadcast that in your experience, and you've done foster care work in other states, you're familiar with what goes on. Montana is not only the worst that you've ever seen, But I think the statement you just made was that children in Montana that go into foster care are in danger. Is that that's what you just stated, right? I just want to make that clear.
I believe they are in physical danger. I believe there is an incredible lack of success rate for them finishing school and having opportunities when they get out. And I don't think there is a sufficient job done. I don't think there's much consideration at all. This little 15-year-old I was talking about, who's about to turn 18 in January, called me about 3 weeks ago just begging to get her out because nobody was helping her. She hadn't gone to school. And a week later, she disappeared and went silent on social media. Every time that happens, they put her somewhere she can't access a phone. And my greatest concern for her is they're going to try to keep her till she's 21.
In California now, they're trying
The
to
runaway,
go to 26.
the runaway was actually what, a half hour from getting in the trunk of a man's car to go to Spokane?
There was a man, a 40-something-year-old man in a junky car that told him if he got in the car with him, he would set him up with a tent in the woods in Washington. And this kid almost got in the car because he didn't know better and he didn't know what to do.
Debbie, Kayla, we'll talk to Kayla here. Tell us, if you can, about the situation, the actual situation surrounding when they actually took your children. Kind of lay that out for us, the day, what happened during the day, and then did you have advance notification? Did they come and did they just show up? Was it a snatch at school? Did you wait till you take them into the doctor? Did they snatch them there? I mean, they've got all these different venues where they kidnap children from, because a lot of times social workers are involved, doctors are involved, nurses are involved, teachers are involved, principals. I mean, you name it, folks. There's a lot of cash that gets doled out. And like I said before on this show, when they get that big thick envelope full of, that's okay. When they get that big thick envelope full of cash, all this trafficking children and kidnapping, not so hard to take when the money comes in. Sorry, Kayla, go ahead.
Let me just go back a little bit, because of the case in New York. They required me because CPS here refused the ICPC, and they said that they can't do that because they don't allow that. So when that was denied, the New York courts asked me to find somewhere else to go for my mom's house, because they're stating that she's mentally unstable, that she has weapons in her house, and those type of things. And my mom's not that kind of person. She doesn't own a single weapon in her home.
You mean they lied? Shocker.
They lied.
Shocker.
Straight out lied in court.
That's common.
There is one weapon in my home. It's a 3-foot decorative sword that's duller than a butter knife.
Yeah. Well, they don't let the truth get in the way of their narrative when it comes to snatching kids. Believe me.
Exactly.
That's the truth is always a casualty when it comes to that.
The reason Montana denied the ICPC, and I put that in I put a screenshot of the reason for the denial in my post yesterday. The reason for denial of the ICPC is 100% me. Nothing that my daughter had done wrong at all. They did not want me around the kids. I even left the house for 2 weeks, and that was not good enough for them.
Kayla, I'm going to ask you just a question flat out here on the air. Do you love your children, and do you have any intention of harming your children or putting them in any situation that would cause them harm?
I love my kids 100%. I would never, ever in my life do anything to harm my children.
Well, that folks right there is a statement from the parent coming right out here. And have you ever done anything to harm your children? You haven't neglected your children, harmed your children. It's because of your mother is the reason they don't want you there, because they've snatched her child as well, which is your brother or half brother. I'm not sure, but it's your stepbrother. But they've taken already one member of your family, and now they're taken. How many of your precious children have been taken? How many? 2 or 3? How many has it been? How many was it?
3.
3. So I thought 3.
3.
3 children. That's what I thought.
Worst I've ever done is put my child in a corner.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've had parents on the show, multiple parents on the show here that have had 7 children taken. I think there's like four sets of parents that have had 7 children taken by CPS.
Can I interrupt just briefly?
Sure. Go ahead, Suzanne.
She loves her children so much that when all of this was going down, she literally signed power of attorney over to my husband and I, as well as signing guardianship papers so that her children would not end up in foster care, which I spoke with Laura McCullough about on the phone. They had a copy of the power of attorney with them, and CPS still took these kids. They still took these kids. She loved them enough to sign them over so they wouldn't end up in foster care.
Because it's not about the kids
that long. It is not. It's about
it's about retribution for Debbie speaking out. Payback. Just what it says. Payback right there. Montana DPHS kidnaps grandkids with a Republican critic, and Debbie has been on this program numerous times. I'm a critic of them. Debbie's been a critic.
She's also dug up a lot of money missing money on the governor, and I think this is very retaliatory.
Oh, sure
I think the figures and facts that she has found have been used by most Republican candidates, rightfully so. That's why there's a lot to answer for.
That's why it was important for them to get this done before the election, because I think they know what's going to be happening, and their way of doing things are over. If I have anything to say about it, I'll tell you that right now. And a lot of other people in the state are fed up with the criminality. And let me tell you something, people from DPHS, you have no immunity when you break the law and kidnap children. You think you're going to be protected under some immunity? Nope. When the truth comes out, you're going to prison. Prison is where you belong for kidnapping children without due process. I don't care if you're just doing your job. That didn't work in Nuremberg trials. It's not going to work here. Debbie, anything you want to say to follow up on that or anything else? Stuff gets me so angry I can't even hardly function. I can't stand these people.
I know. I'm the same way, Jim. And I'm so scatterbrained with everything going on the last couple of days. There's so much to this. You know, the CPS was so adamant that Kayla not stay with me. They were very, very adamant from the get-go that she goes to a homeless shelter here in town.
And that's why I was giving you the background of prior to this, a reason why what led up to them being taken, because I believe that's something that needs to be understood too.
Sure.
To understand the whole case.
Of course. Right. Go right ahead.
So Kayla went to God's Love at their direction, very much at their direction, because they helped her get in there. She was ridiculed, belittled, just completely talked down to for days. She felt very unsafe. And she got a little bit of money, so she decided to leave and go get a motel room. Comes back the next day to get her stuff, and God's Love refuses to give her belongings, including her medication and my granddaughter's school computer.
And my daughter's medication. She is asthmatic.
What was the reasoning behind them denying you? Did they give you any written statement? Did they give you any receipt that they're going to hold on to your belongings? That they stole
they said
from
I had
you?
to go get the police
to get your own belongings back. So we need to know.
The courthouse told me that that they cannot hold my medication or any of that stuff because legally that laptop is not even mine. I am responsible for it, but that is actually property of this Board of Education. Not my property.
So after the show here, Debbie, I need you to send me over this organization, God's Love, who the administrator is, who runs things over there. We're going to shine a little bit of light on these people. Please continue.
So, Kayla spends a couple more days at the motel. Wednesday, her attorney, her public defender in New York, contacts her and asks where she's at. She told her where she was. She said that CPS had been trying to contact her, and Kayla says, "I don't have any phone calls from CPS, nothing." And she says, "Well, they know that she's not at God's Love, and if she does not go back to God's Love, that the judge in New York, we had a hearing yesterday on Friday in New York, and she says if Kayla does not go back to God's Love, the judge will probably remove the kids from New York on Friday." So Thursday morning, Kayla went over to her therapist's office at the Center for Mental Health.
for advocacy because I felt like I wasn't being heard and I felt like my words are being twisted around. And that's been the story of my life for years since I was a child. So I felt that I needed an official to be there to voice for myself. And that is what a mental health agency is there for, especially a caseworker. They're there to actually help an individual who cannot verbalize themselves, especially when they're anxious and have a known anxiety, to voice for them because they're twisting words around.
You know, I just wonder, does rule of law, due process, jurisdiction mean anything to these people? Folks,
No.
You have to understand. Put yourself in this situation. We are afforded due process of law anytime any life, liberty, or property is taken from us. We are allowed to go before a jury of our peers. We are allowed to present evidence. We are allowed to call witnesses in our defense to speak about our character. None of that stuff is done in family court.
Nope.
None of it.
Nope.
None of it. Zero. Not only that, they tell, hold on, Debbie. Not only that, they tell you can't bring the Constitution into this courtroom. How many times have I had people on the show saying that? You can't bring the Constitution into this courtroom. Yep. Folks, if this is the first time you're becoming exposed to what's going on here, this is a criminal kidnapping, money laundering cabal. That's what it is. End of story. Please continue.
When I got there, my caseworker, when I got to the Center of Mental Health, my caseworker said, well, let's call CPS and see what's going on, because Dave from God's Love, he doesn't even run the family shelter. He runs a single and couple part of the shelter. He's not even a part of the family part. So he's the one who's kicked me out and denied me all this stuff. So we call him because they have told my lawyer that I can't come back, but they told my caseworker at Center of Mental Health that I could. So we call him, and he says no, she cannot come back. She cannot pick up her stuff, and the CPS is waiting for her here. The moment she comes up, they're grabbing her kids. So my worker says, let's call your worker. Let's get a hold of her and find out what's going on.
The woman at the Center for Mental Health, Kayla's therapist,
my caseworker,
said, let's call CPS. Well, first of all, I told Kayla, I says, you call this other agency and see if you can get a place for the night. And she did. She did. They immediately had her a place for that for the other night.
I even have a receipt for that place to prove that I had a place.
So, and then the next thing, I leave, and the next thing I know, I'm getting a phone call from Kayla. CPS is here. Mm-hmm. So I go right back, and there's a woman sitting. You can see her sitting in the video next to me, and she never identifies who she was, not to me. And it was I've been there about 5 or 6 minutes when Kayla said her name, Laura. And I looked at her and says, oh, you're Laura McAuliffe. And she said, yes, ma'am. Or yeah.
Let me bring
Kayla
Suzanne
requested
here.
The police.
Go ahead.
Kayla requested police presence. Kayla requested police presence. And they walked in just shortly after I did. The first thing the officer did was pull me off to the side and say, if there's any issues, people will go to jail. And it's just ridiculous. And then what you see in the video goes on, and it's just sickening, Jim.
Suzanne, I'm going to bring you into this, Suzanne. You know, I'm passionate about this, as you can probably tell. That's not to say that there are plenty of children that need help. There's no doubt about it. And I know that there are foster parents out there that are good foster parents that don't want to harm children. What can we do, Suzanne? How can we make this better? We can never get in a position where we take children from homes, even though their parents may not be quote unquote perfect. They're still oftentimes way better than being in the foster care system. Do you have what's your thoughts on that, Susan? Is there anything,
So,
how can we reform this? This has got to be made better. Go ahead, Susan.
The trauma of child removal in and of itself, even without the constant moving, relocating in the foster system, is damaging, right? There is a law called Family First, right? We all know it. It's been implemented in most states. Montana got a 2-year delay on that. And the whole goal of that is to support bio families in keeping their children within the house and in the home. Montana still has not implemented any part of that, does, as you can tell, not offer professional services and support to bio families to keep their children. In fact, Kayla here was denied her medication. Now, I'll be right on here and let my HIPAA rights go. I'm ADHD. If you denied me my medication, I would be a basket case. And I used to be a CIO. So needing the medication is not a crime. Taking the medication away from somebody and expecting them to be able to logically defend themselves should be a crime if it isn't. So, the goal of Family First is to keep the children in the home. Is there a need for foster homes? Yes, I've had children that were sex trafficked, and yes, I will always be here for those children. Do I want to have children that should be reunited with their families? No, I don't. The inconsistency across counties, the lack of protocol, procedure, definition here is disgraceful. I had a child whose father paid child support, had the child fully insured, was a upstanding, fine fellow, and he was in Hawaii when his child was taken, and it took 3 months for him to get custody of his child because the child was taken away from the mother, even though he had supported her the whole time. So now we have Kayla, whose oldest child has been placed with a dad she doesn't even know, who has not possibly had a background check on him, because as somebody that used to be an IT director of a data reselling company, I can find stuff on him with $1.95 on the internet. And I let Laura McCullough know that as well. I emailed her up yesterday, making sure it was officially on the record that I don't believe they even did a background check on this fellow, that they certainly didn't do due diligence. And this child should have been left with her mom. And
Who hasn't seen her father in over 8 years?
No. And if they had an issue, an emergency placement was available that was a licensed foster home that would have kept the kids together, at least in the immediate. I was very honest. We couldn't keep all 3 for an extended period, but there was no reason that night to take that child to a place where we don't think she's safe now. And who knows where the other 2 are.
And Laura McCullough was told that was an unsafe placement the day they took the children.
Advance.
And they told Kayla the day they took the children, they were just taking them for the night.
And
they
the very first thing they said.
And they said in court yesterday in New York that they were just taking them for the night. Well, if that's the case, why did they take my 9-year-old granddaughter 300 miles away that night?
And you have to have that planned, right? You can't just... That is something that is this father hasn't seen his daughter in 8 years. You don't think he was expecting her that
Sure
night?
was.
You don't think this was a setup? This was an absolute setup. And regardless, if they need to do an investigation, there were safe alternatives. And frankly, they didn't offer her any services.
Right.
I am absolutely appalled. I used to sit on the board of NAMI in South Carolina, and that's a mental health advocacy group. The fact that mental health would call and not support this woman is beyond belief.
Well,
they want her to go back to this therapist. It's like, this is sickening. I want to make it clear here. These are the same agencies that were involved in the removal with my son.
Yes, and this is not the way that mental health advocacy is supposed to happen. It is certainly not the best standards or protocol. NAMI sets that, and this is not what they would have handled. or how they would have it handled, and it is shocking.
They never look. They never look to heal the family. They never look to provide services,
No.
or if ever, right? And they have the
Now,
funds to do that. They're supposed to be doing
I
that.
want to pause a minute there, because I think in Montana you do have to assess it county by county.
Right.
The body corporate in Helena, it's ridiculously corrupt and needs to be disassembled. There are, and I exclusively usually work with just one county because I think they're the only ones that actually care for the children, and will work to the nth degree to make sure those kids are safe and in a good placement. It's not the county I live in.
Yeah, I need to get that person on my
counties,
show. I need to get the person in charge of that county on my show, and to as a model for everybody else. If they act as appropriately as you say they do,
their director was drummed out about a year ago. Their social workers are still exceptional. I don't know the current director as well, but one of the things they do right that I do not see happening in other counties is every child has an attorney and a CASA, which is their legal right as children in this system. And I've had kids from Cascade County that have never met their attorney. Their attorney was actually almost adversarial to the teenager, and they'd never met a CASA and had never been assigned a CASA or guardian ad litem. The system will never be safe in any state anywhere without a child having legal representation and neutral representation.
You know what I would start out with first, Suzanne? I can tell you this. If everybody was afforded due process and a jury trial, there wouldn't need to be as many attorneys. There wouldn't need to be as many CASAs, because only about 10 to 12% of these cases would ever even go into foster care or anything like that. If they had due process, all this whole apparatus would fall apart, because they would not be able to operate, because other parents would go, we're not sending. For what they did? What? So they're on medication? You want me to remove their kids? We ain't doing it. Sorry. Next case. Get this out of here.
Right. But I think that for the kids that would end up in care, and there are sex trafficked children, there are some children that would end up in care, and I don't care how minute that percentage is, they deserve representation and they deserve legal guardianship.
No, of course, right. After the due process is done, then yes, absolutely.
Again, I agree with you totally. There is no due process in this. There was no desire to actually do or work in the best interest of the children. I did not get that from Laura McCullough at all. She really did not care. She damn near called me a liar for when I told her I was a licensed foster parent.
Not the Benjamins. It's never about. It's not about the help.
I'll tell you what. Man. Why are they putting the little girl in and out of institutions that wanted to stay at our house that had a full-time job and was going to school? Because they want the money. She thinks she's pregnant. Is she? I don't know. But it would explain a lot why all of a sudden she's disappeared. Because now they get twice the money. If you think I'm not concerned about that, I am petrified. And if she does not show up by the end of January, I'm going to turn into hell on wheels.
You better believe.
I have waited 3 years for that kid.
And you better believe, if she is pregnant, they'll be waiting. They'll be waiting at the hospital, to take that child when it's born. Yeah. Guarantee you, folks, $1,000 right now. Anybody?
They're going to steal
$1,000 right now. She's at the hospital. They'll be there, and they'll take her child before she even takes it home. Guaranteed. I know how the system works.
She has plenty of places and people that love her, that are legitimate, that would take her in. When we had her, and she was dropped off in a group home from our house after being physically ripped. I'm not kidding, ripped. She was grabbing onto our banister, screaming and crying. And then they dropped her off in a group home. And they didn't even call her to check on her for weeks. They took her little sister and they left her to fill out her own paperwork, as she's hysterical, having just been ripped from the only mom and dad she's ever known. And this wasn't a kid where due process was done and the child had been through hell. And this is all done by
the most well-funded agency in the entire state.
Yep.
Not even close. There's not even another agency even close to DPHHS when it comes to sucking funds. Not even close, folks. Debbie.
But don't even get me started on sucking funds.
I was one of those foster kids that Suzanne's talking about. And I can tell you 100% that these government agencies within the foster care systems, they do take these kids and they will lock them up in psychiatric hospitals just as scare tactics, take their medications just like they're doing to me. That's another scare tactic they do. I've dealt with mental health issues since I was 8 years old, and I know enough about this stuff and all these scare tactics to know that that's exactly what they're doing to me. And that's what they're doing to the foster children that Suzanne's dealing with. These are all scare tactics to control us or to make us isolated so we do not fight back. We do not have a voice.
They had us so scared. I've been dealing with this stuff for a long time, and I've been through a lot in my life. But they had us so scared a couple weeks ago that I was literally sleeping on the floor in front of the door on like a guard dog because we didn't know what they were capable of.
Just remember, folks, right? Just remember this. When the people fear the government, it's tyranny. When the government fears the people, it's liberty. What you hear right here is you hear people fearing the government. That is tyranny in its purest form right there. Right there. Worrying about the state coming and taking your children. It doesn't get much worse than that, folks. We're going to wind this interview down for sake of viewability here, ladies. I'm going to go ahead and give you both sets of you. Go ahead and Kayla and Debbie, and then we'll go to you, Suzanne. Go ahead and give you the final word here before we end this interview. Go right ahead. Kayla, go ahead. Anything you'd like to say in closing?
I just think these people need to be brought down and then everything be built up because it's pathetic. I've seen it in multiple different states of children and adults, even psychiatric adults. I mean, my thing is they have adult protective services for people who have mental health, and they don't even call that on them. They call child protective services on a parent instead of adult protective services to get them the help they need. I can't even call them. My mom can't call them. Suzanne can't call adult protective services.
Adult protective services, they do the same thing that they do to children, they do to adults.
They all do the same
elderly.
thing.
They rob them of their entire life fortunes and lead them to die alone. Debbie?
I'm just going to say what I've been saying all along. The whole situation is absolutely wrong. Those who stand up to do what's right, they kick in the teeth, they do everything they can do to knock us down. And I'm not the only candidate going through crap this year. I know a lot of Republicans are taking it from the left. And it's just absolutely ridiculous. All I want is for our nation to be back the way it was, one nation under God. And all of this fighting is just ridiculous. And people, I guess as Rodney King would say, why can't we all just get along?
Yeah, it's because, you know why? It's because there's elements inside the Department of Health and Human Services that are kidnapping children with pleasure for the money. That's why. That's why. Suzanne, go ahead. I'm going to give you the last word here. What's your thoughts about all this as a foster parent? What's the next step? Or what can be done here to we got to stop the madness? Suzanne, over to you.
I think the people really need to stand up, and I think that is part of one of the things that is so disturbing here. One of the reasons I can stand up is my youngest children are 22. Okay, I don't have to fear them coming to get my children. I'm one of the few foster parents that doesn't have to fear them, right? I'm one of the few people that's aware of this, that isn't afraid of them. And I think the fear of retaliation is so extreme that people are afraid to stand up. And if we stand up as a large group, we can stand, and we need to stand up. These are kids. These are all of our children, and they are being damaged and traumatized in a way they will never recover from. There is no recovery. I had a 6-year-old girl that had been in care 4 years and in 8 homes. You tell me that child is ever recovering. She won't. She won't.
We had a guest here, Justin Banta, on the show, whose daughter had been in 14 different shelters in 14 months. And that's what we're dealing with here. Ladies, I so much appreciate you joining us today on the broadcast. We're going to stay on top of the story here, not just for the DPHHS implications in the kidnapping, but the fact that it looks like it's retaliatory against you, Deb, because you're calling out DPHHS, and then with your Montana Money site, you're exposing all the corruption that goes on in government openly.
Yep.
And no one even seems to care, but you do, and we do appreciate the work that you've done. You're obviously paying somewhat of a price for it, but stand firm, because the tide's about to turn, I do believe, and I believe that you'll be vindicated, and so will others. Ladies, thanks so much. Debbie, did you have something you wanted to say before we go?
No, I just want to say thank you, Jim. Thank you for everything you do and have been doing.
Thank you so much, Jim.
Yeah, it's always my pleasure to take down crooks. Always.
Yep,
always.
mine
Believe
too.
me. Don't thank me. I get pleasure out of taking down criminals. Thanks so much, Debbie. Appreciate it. Kayla, Suzanne, appreciate you joining the broadcast today. We look forward to speaking to you next time. We'll stay on top of this. Thanks so much. Okay, folks, there goes Debbie. Okay, folks, we're back live again here on the broadcast. Thanks so much for joining us here. And that's the story of Debbie and her daughter, Kayla. No due process. As I stated in the broadcast, we're supposed to be afforded due process, and this doesn't happen in family courts. Almost never. You tell me to get a jury of your peers in family court? Show me. I'd like to see it. I really would. I'd like to see it. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We have some people on the line here. We have some of the legislators. This rest of the show is going to be just for legislators only to call in that have comments. I know some of them are, I think, going to be calling in. There's someone on the line now holding. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back on the other side, we're going to pick up the phone lines here and carry on with the show. Montana Gazette Radio, Montana Gazette Radio, MontanaGazetteRadio.com, or MontanaDailyGazette.com. I'm your host, James Hunt. We'll be back after these brief messages. If you like classic cars, exceptional service, and a money-back guarantee, then the Corner Shop in beautiful downtown Kalispell is the place for you. Whether it's an oil change, engine diagnostic, suspension work, or brakes all around, the Corner Shop has you covered. With expert technicians and a free consultation on all services, you can't go wrong with the Corner Shop. Did I mention the classic cars? While you're waiting for your expert service to be performed, take a stroll through the showroom to see Kalispell's smoothest collection of classic cars. The Corner Shop is conveniently located at 1212 South Main, just south of the courthouse. The Corner Shop is open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m., so drop by for an appointment or call 755-7777. That's 755-7777. The Corner Shop, Kalispell's full-service auto repair facility.
Horrible food from Legacy and Heaven's Harvest. Patriot Prepared. Our name says it all. We're dedicated to empowering you to be self-reliant and confident in any circumstance. Whether you want to be prepared in the event of an emergency or you're an outdoor sports enthusiast, PatriotPrepared.com has prepackaged meals and kits for your entire family. Legacy, Heaven's Harvest are known for high-quality, great-tasting, GMO-free, nutritious food with no chemical preservatives. Simple to prepare, easy to store, gluten-free and organic high-quality nutrition options with a 25-year shelf life. You can't beat the feeling of being food secure when you need it most. So go to PatriotPrepared.com right now to pick up your supply of high-quality storable food for your family, because it makes good sense to be prepared. That's PatriotPrepared.com.
Okay, folks, if you want to support this broadcast, please support our sponsors. They're scrolling across the bottom of the screen there. And you can go to PatriotPrepared.com and take care of all your storable food needs. And others, as I stated, the other sponsors that are across the bottom of the screen there, we do appreciate your support. You can also support the news broadcast, the news website, by going to MontanaDailyGazette.com. It's MontanaDailyGazette.com. And all of the different streams of this program will soon be on MontanaGazetteRadio.com. Okay, I'm your host, James White, and this is the 26th day of October. We just got finished watching the interview I did with Debbie Westlake and her daughter, Kayla, over the DPHHS incident with her children. We have a caller here on the line, and we're just taking Montana callers today here. And, of course, I don't think I have to worry about with this show, but I have to state the rules of the call-in line are, you don't have to agree with me or any of the guests. Just be respectful and don't use vulgar language, and I think we'll be good. So let's take this first caller here. Caller, please state your name and where you're calling from in Montana.
How you doing? Ron Marshall. I'm calling from Hamilton, Montana.
Hi, Ron.
Republican candidate for House District 87.
Ron,
and,
thanks so much for being on the show. Thanks so much for calling in.
Appreciate it. Yeah, DPHHS has got a long history of, how should we put it, overreach, to put it mildly. During the interview, they're probably the heaviestly funded bureaucracy in Montana. I believe they suck up about 48% of the state's budget. And last I heard, the state of Montana had a budget of around $10 billion a year. So, I mean, the tentacles of this organization go far and wide, and CPS is just one of them. And when you're talking about, Child Protective Services and courts and everything, the DOJ should be heavily involved in this. So, I mean, how far does it really go? We've dealt with it in our personal businesses. We've dealt with DPHHS on another side, so to speak. They're heavy-handed. They think that they can just rule according to however they want, what they say is going to be the law. We've dealt with the governor. We've had the governor. We've sued the governor, actually. We've been in the courtrooms with these people. They will lie, cheat, steal, to do whatever they want to do, and they'll do it by all means necessary. One of the things I'm looking forward to, should I be elected, is going up there. I want to get on one committee that's called Health and Human Services, and they need to be shaken up, shaken down, and tore apart. They're just, you've seen basically the waste, fraud, and abuse up there with the money alone is enough to it should scare every Montanan to death.
Well, it's Ron, right? It's Ron, correct?
Right.
Ron, sorry to interrupt you, but let me get your view on this. What do you think about the lawlessness of not allowing a person due process to take their precious children, Ron? I mean, of all things in a life that someone can lose, is there anything more precious? I mean, for me, you can take all my worldly possessions and it would even, in a half a second, before I'd want anybody to harm or take my children. These are the most precious possessions people have, and they get taken without due process. There's no jury of their peers. They oftentimes can't put evidence in. They don't have any real solid legal representation most of the time, and they sometimes can't bring the Constitution into the courtroom, and they get gagged on top of it when they try to speak out. I mean, this is not American. I can tell you that much.
No, this is Soviet style justice here, and you're right. My thing is, in Debbie's case, and her daughter, what are we doing here? We're allowing another state to interdict and take control of residents here in our state. Is this how this is going to work? I don't think so. The Constitution is very, very clear. Okay, and these people seem to think that the Constitution, they're above the law. I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. It does not work that way at all. What needs to happen is this whole CPS system needs to be shut down, revamped, and it just needs to be disassembled. These child protective courts, no, they're not protecting anybody. It's a mill, for lack of a better term. It's a child mill. They're making money off of this stuff, and it's got to stop. I mean, you go to court, if you're charged with a crime in the United States, where's my accuser? Show me the evidence. I get to defend myself. I'm innocent until proven guilty. And these people seem to think it's the opposite. And enough is enough. This has got to stop. And hopefully this year it's going to stop.
Well, I think it is. I do think it is. Ron, I didn't. I really would like to maybe have you on the broadcast. Maybe if you're running for office here, I didn't. There's just so many that maybe we can talk after. You can send me an email if you'd like. And see if I have an open slot here before the election. I maybe have one or two left in the week here. Maybe we can have you on to do a full interview and have you talk about your platform and some of the stuff. I'm assuming here we can actually just touch it briefly. I'm assuming, sounds to me Like you're a solid constitutional guy, Second Amendment, First Amendment, personal rights, personal responsibilities, and smaller government. Is that fair to assume, Ron?
That's very fair. That's very fair. I don't think, my platform is personally, I'm a veteran of the United States military. I took an oath, and that oath never goes away. There's no cancellation date ever. The Constitution is the Constitution. You're not going to change it. You're not going to circumvent it. It is what it is. It's plain, it's simple, and it's easy. It's very easy. Second Amendment, by far, you can never own enough. It's got to be, a government of the people, by the people, for the people again.
Well, tell you what.
So that's pretty much what it is.
I don't know where you're listening to this broadcast from, but I'm sure underneath wherever it is, there's my email address. So send me an email. Reach out to me if you can. And what we'll do is I'll try to reach back out to you. We'll schedule something here coming up before the election. And why don't you go ahead and give out your websites, where people can find out more about you before we let you go, Ron.
Well, I don't have a website
or Facebook page.
I have a candidate page on Facebook.
Sure.
Yep, and it's Ron Marshall for House District 87.
Ron Marshall for House District 87. Thanks so much, Ron. Appreciate you calling in.
Yep.
We've got other calls.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Okay, folks, we're going to take another call here. We're just going to keep rolling through. Hi, thanks for calling in. You're live on the air. Please state your first name and what city in Montana you're calling from. Go ahead, caller. You're live.
Jim, are you speaking to me? This is Teresa Manzella calling.
Hello, Teresa Manzella. I'm speaking to you, dear. How are you? Thanks for calling
in. I'm okay. I'm a bit troubled after watching the interview, and I'm trying to make sense of. There's an echo. There's a delay between the interview on that's on my laptop and then the phone. So I'm sorry. I'm just trying to catch up.
No, there is a little bit of a delay. There's a delay
in the process here, but yeah. So it's incredibly disturbing, and Debbie came before us in the Judiciary Committee in 2017, and her story seemed so unbelievable. It was just difficult to grasp and believe. And we passed a law in 2017 that if a parent does feel wronged by CPS or DPHHS, that they can assign a legislator to their case and get their legislator to review the situation. And some of these are very, very difficult to sort out, because there are children out there that their parents don't care for them, they neglect them, they abuse them, and they need our help. And then there are situations, and we've heard so many of them, that the parents are being abused. The parental rights are absolutely being abused, and the children are being kidnapped. And it is kidnapping. I have asked Debbie to provide me with a case number so that I can become invested in this and try to sort out what it is that's going on. And they have not given her a case number. So it's just, where do we start? Where do we even start sorting this out? And in my mind, we start with the Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable search and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause supported by the oath and affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. That's where we start. So where's the warrant? Where is the warrant in this situation signed by a judge that determined that there was probable cause for CPS to step in and take Kayla's children? To my knowledge, there isn't one. If there is one, someone needs to provide it to us for viewing and for review. it's just, when we passed that law in 2017, I felt very ill prepared and to actually step into the middle of this situation. But now I can see that it's so desperately needed. And,
folks, if you don't recognize the voice,
I got into politics. Oops.
No, it's okay. There's a little bit of a delay. This is Teresa Manzella we're speaking to. She is currently from the Montana House of Representatives, and she is running for Senate District 44 here coming up in the latest election. We just wanted to do that quick reset, and that's who's joining us on the line here. And she has vowed to take personal interest in Debbie's case. And the thing, Teresa, that gets me really, and here's what I think: a lot of this could be ended. And I said it in the interview. If we could just give these people due process, if a jury of their peers could hear their story and have them come before them and bring in evidence to their defense and bring in witnesses or character witnesses, and I don't think many of these children would be separated from their families and put into the foster care system, which we know, Teresa, and this is conservative numbers. Children that are found in trafficking, 80% of them, and the number's even been higher, 80% of them are in the foster care system. This is a national tragedy that has to be addressed this legislative cycle, if not sooner. Any thoughts on that, Teresa?
Oh, I agree with you completely. But the step one in getting a person due process is that there has to be probable cause to issue a warrant to start the process of due process. And we seem to just completely be sidestepping and violating a parent's constitutional rights. And I just find that just completely unacceptable.
It's reprehensible.
And egregious. And pardon me?
It's reprehensible is what it is. It's reprehensible to treat someone that way.
It is. It absolutely is. And the reason I got into politics was because this same thing was happening to people's animals. And that, to me, was, that was an incredible tragedy because because I make my living off my animals. And the same thing was happening to people's animals, was that they were being confiscated and taken from them illegally. But to think that it's happening to people's children is beyond my ability to comprehend. It's just absolutely.
Indeed.
This is America.
Well, Teresa, we certainly are. We throw our support behind you, and we're going to be doing our recommendation show, or I should say, our candidate show here pretty soon. And you're certainly on our list of endorsement show. I'm thinking of. Why don't you give, if you can, here we got another caller waiting on the line. Representative Manzella, can you give out your websites and where people can find out more about you and more about your campaign? Folks, you need to get behind Teresa Manzella, and we're behind her here at Montana Gazette Radio. That's for sure. Go ahead, Teresa.
Thank you, Jim. Yes, www.manzellaformontana.com is where they can find out more information about me, and with the Lord's willing, we'll be representing people in Senate District 44. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you so much, very much, Representative Manzella. We look forward to talking to you again soon. God bless you. Okay.
God bless you too.
There goes Representative Manzella. We've got another call coming in. We're going to just jump right over to the call here, folks, and take the next caller. Caller, you're live on the air. Please state your first name and what city in Montana you're calling from. You're up, caller.
Hey, Jim. This is Darren Gobb calling from Helena.
Hello, Darren.
Republican candidate for House District 83. How are you?
Good, Darren. How you doing, man? Good to have you on the show. Thanks for calling in. We've had Darren on the show here three weeks ago. Great candidate, great interview, really good interview, Darren. You did a great job. Thanks so much for calling in. Do you have a comment on today's broadcast?
I do, absolutely. First, I want to let you know that I know Debbie. I've been around Debbie quite a bit, and I voted for her because I actually live in her district by about a half a block, and she's a wonderful person. And I think what you're seeing here is an organized kidnapping, very, very mafia-like under the guise of the government. And I won't reiterate too much what's already been said because I agree with Teresa and Ron for sure. The lack of due process, not looking at the Fourth Amendment, not using the Fourth Amendment, no oversight. Typically going after families who are unable to defend themselves for a variety of reasons, even though they have a phenomenal defense and story that wouldn't stand up, in my opinion, in any court. And as a state legislator, for District 83, one of my goals would always be to really clean out agencies like this. They just, Rhonda's right. They need to be dismantled, torn down, started over. They can do good things for the right reasons. There are families who do need help. There are people who do need help. There's no doubt about that. But this is vastly overshadowed by the fact that there's such a dirty organization that is driven so much by money and profit. They, like any other agency in this state here, really needs to be externally audited, and all of us should be able to follow every single dime spent and who it goes to determine their motivations. Everything else that has been said by Ron and Teresa, I agree with, and I think if we can all get together and clean this out, we would find so much more than we even know about now.
No, indeed, you are correct. It is as I stated, it's a national tragedy. What's going on? That's for sure. And Darren, all we can do really is just continue to shine light on it. And like the guest said on the broadcast, someone has to just stand up. People just have to stand up, and that's what needs to happen. Folks, we're going to take it. Darren, thanks so much for calling in. We're going to take another quick commercial break. My next guest is here knocking on the door, so we're going to let him in, take a quick commercial break, and we come back on the other side. Unless you want to hang on, anything else you want to say, Darren? You want to hang on after the break? Did you have anything else you want to comment on?
No, everything that's been said I agree with, and I don't need to repeat it. Thanks
so very much. We appreciate it, and thanks so much for calling in, Darren. Okay, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. I'm going to let my next guest, Tom Millett, in the door here, and then when we get back, we'll pick back up here, and we have another caller waiting on the line. James White, Montana Gazette Radio. Thanks so much for looking in. MontanaGazetteRadio.com.
PatriotPrepared.com carries the leading brands of storable food from Legacy and Heaven's Harvest. Patriot Prepared. Our name says it all. We're dedicated to empowering you to be self-reliant and confident in any circumstance. Whether you want to be prepared in the event of an emergency or you're an outdoor sports enthusiast, PatriotPrepared.com has prepackaged meals and kits for your entire family. Legacy, Heaven's Harvest are known for high-quality, great-tasting, GMO-free, nutritious food with no chemical preservatives. Simple to prepare, easy to store, gluten-free and organic high-quality nutrition options with a 25-year shelf life. You can't beat the feeling of being food secure when you need it most. So go to PatriotPrepared.com right now to pick up your supply of high-quality storable food for your family, because it makes good sense to be prepared. That's PatriotPrepared.com.
Have you heard of Protovite? The most common health concern today is poor digestive health. Unlike ordinary supplements, Protovite is a liquid multi-nutrient formula with patent-pending absorption technology. A published scientific study proves that Protovite is nutrition that gets in 100% of the time. Protovite uses the highest quality ingredients to rapidly nourish every cell in your body.
My name is Sandra. 6 weeks ago, when I started taking Protovite, I was on 14 medications, from everything for blood pressure to fibromyalgia. In the first 10 days, my blood sugar dropped 50 points, and my fibromyalgia pain is gone. And so was 12 of the 14 medications that I was taking.
Protovite, nutrition that gets in. Buy Protovite now.
Thank you, Protovite, for giving my life back.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Work with your doctor when taking medications. Make Protovite part of your healthy lifestyle.
Okay, folks, if you want to check out the great liquid vitamin supplementations that they have there at Protovite, you can go to bloodboost.net. That's bloodboost.net. And check out the full line of Protovite products. I've had Bill Downs, the formulator, on the show numerous times. He's a genius. He really is. And he puts out some of the highest quality products available. And again, you can check them out at bloodboost.net. And all the products there at bloodboost.net do help boost your immune system. So check them out. If you want to support this broadcast, otherwise, you can support the sponsors scrolling across the bottom of the screen there, or you can go to MontanaGazetteRadio.com. That's MontanaGazetteRadio.com or MontanaDailyGazette.com. And of course, the flagship NorthwestLibertyNews.com. You go to NorthwestLibertyNews.com to check that out. We're to do a reset here. We have Tom Millett here, who's going to be on the program in the next hour. in the studio next door. We were delighted to have him come into the studio. We'll be picking that up with some more local stuff here that's going on in the Flathead Valley. But this is a bit of a reset. Here's the 26th day of October, 2020, and we played the video earlier, the video interview I did this weekend with Debbie Westlake, and you saw you heard from her and from her daughter how basically her children were kidnapped, and we've had legislators here on the show. Teresa Manzella was just on the broadcast, and she had thought the same thing. So what we're doing is we're taking calls here. If you're a Montana legislator and you want to call in, 563-999-3617, 563-999-3617. And we have a call here on the line now. We're going to take that call. Hi, caller. Thanks for calling in. You are live on the air. Please state your first name and what city in Montana you're calling from.
Hi, I am Denise Johnson, and I'm calling from Billings, Montana.
Well, hello, Denise. Good to talk to you again. You've been a guest on my
broadcast.
You've got a guest on my broadcast before.
Yes.
Once or twice at least, I think. And have to have you back on, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for calling in. Please go ahead with your comment.
Yeah, I work with a number of these families that are working with Child Protective Services as an advocate. We are a nonprofit organization called the Montana Child Protection Alliance, and we actually formed about 3 years ago out of concern statewide from hundreds of families who just felt like they were not given due process. And so our group formed, and we've been advocating with families for the last few years, testifying at legislature, doing what we can to move this forward and to raise awareness of what's really happening in our state. And I guess the thing that comes to my mind as I'm processing all this is, and James, you can still hear me, right?
I can indeed.
Okay. Just checking. It's interesting being on the other side. You sometimes don't know. But the thing that I think the most frustrating is that our government should never instill fear in the citizens. And this is what's happening with Child Protective Services, is that we have families who are terrified and who are living in fear. And instead of being able to go to Child Protective Services and get help, most of them end up in worse condition than when they first sought help. The other thing that happens is our families end up isolated, because it's hard to believe, if you have not actually been through this, that this could really be happening. And so what tends to happen is friends isolate from victims, essentially families that are victims, because they don't want to catch the bug. I don't want to be a target of CPS, so they deflect and move away, or they treat their friends like, there's something missing, there's a truth you're not telling, and there's something wrong. So what tends to happen is we see all these families that are in fear and isolation. What does that remind you of? COVID-19. And I don't bring up COVID-19 as part of the scandal, but I basically, what all of us as a community are feeling with the overreach of the government, with COVID-19 and the fear of what could happen and the isolation that's coming, is what families with CPS, who've been involved with CPS, have been living with for decades. And, I just can't help but say, hey, welcome to our world. This is what families who are dealing with CPS, who've been wrongly accused, who are forced into situations, this is what they deal with. It's very, very frightening.
Well, Denise, you have a situation.
It puts all of us at a disadvantage.
And you have a situation here, sadly, where you have an agency that has practically unlimited funds and practically zero accountability, and they. You're right. They there's never. I mean, then now they've instilled some sort of immunity, apparently, where they aren't liable for violating someone's constitutional rights and kidnapping their children. I don't think that's going to fly. Here's what I think, Denise. I think that when all this stuff that's getting ready to drop with Biden's laptop, when you see everything that's going on here nationally, I'm going to make a prediction right here on this broadcast. You're going to find that when the trafficking part of that whole laptop exposure is going to lead back to Child Protective Services in many states. They're a supply line. They're a supply line for these scum. I've interviewed hundreds, as you probably have, hundreds of parents, and probably talked to hundreds more This is how they operate.
Yep.
This is a criminal, organized criminal kidnapping cabal. Just look at Cindy Absig's case. If you want to just get a real good case study on what goes on, watch all the videos from Cindy Absig, who I've had on my program, who was actually arrested. That's the next move they do. They take your children, then they file charges against the parents. This is how they operate, folks.
Mm-hmm.
This is like a mafia.
Yeah.
Please, Denise, go ahead.
Well, and you're absolutely right on there, and you know you're right on, but the Center for Missing and Exploited Children has already reported that over 80% of the children who are rescued from trafficking come from foster care, from Child Protective Services. So our children are going through this trafficking system because we've provided a source through foster care. It's a horrifying thought that our children are being traumatized and put through this. It's just horrifying. And I appreciated the previous speaker's comment about auditing the department, the finances, but it's also important to audit our people. Where are our children? Is every child accounted for and where they're supposed to be? Because I think that would also be very enlightening because, again, you can't have children coming out of trafficking at 80% coming in foster care without children missing from foster care. So where are our children really? So yeah, that's part of it too. The other thing I just want to throw out too is there's very important legislation that has already been signed into law by President Trump 3 years ago, shortly after he was elected, and it's called Family First.
Right.
And what it does is shift funding from foster care to family preservation. Montana has been kicking this can down the road, and they need to come forth with a plan and put it into place with this legislative session. Absolutely must happen. So if I could leave on a note, and that would be to encourage everyone in this state to contact your legislator and make sure they're aware of Family First and that they are voting to get Family First on the books in Montana. We are one of the worst in the state as far as stats for the number of kids in foster care. We should have been first in line to bring Family First into place. So shame on Montana for not putting it in place, and it needs to happen this session.
Yeah, we're not only just worse. We're one of the worst in the nation. We're one of the worst in the nation for that. Well, Denise, to tell you, this week is going to be, as you can understand, I'm going to be trying to get as many candidates here on the line as I can here because of the election. But afterwards, after that whole circus sideshow is all over with, we'll have you back on the program between then and the beginning of the year, because then the legislative session will start, and I'll be having legislators on the show then. But in that interim there, we'll have you on the program here so we can actually, prime the current class of legislators to do the right thing when the legislative session rolls around. We so much appreciate you, Denise, and all the work that you do. God bless you. Thanks so much for calling in today on the broadcast. Anything else you wanted to say?
Thanks, James. No, that's it. I just want to support Debbie and let her know that she's in our prayers, and we're doing our best to help support her.
Indeed we are. Thanks so much, Denise, for calling in. Appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Goodbye.
Okay, bye now, folks. If you're a legislator here, if you're an advocate here in Montana and you want to call in, 563-999-3617, 563-999-3617. And if this is the first time you're hearing about this, folks, first time you're having your eyes open to just the rampant criminality that goes on inside DPHHS on a regular basis, on a day-to-day basis. Okay? It doesn't matter to me what the parent has done. If they are afforded due process of law. Murderers oftentimes, usually, are afforded due process. Right? These people haven't murdered anybody. They haven't even really harmed their children in most cases. In some cases, they have meth problem. They have a drug problem. Does that mean you need to have your children taken, or do you need to have treatment to help heal yourself and heal your family? Right? Nope. Taking your children, that's what they do. That's the solution that they use. They snatch your kids. It's kidnapping. I've called them kidnappers 1,000 times and called them a kidnapping cabal, and not one time has anybody ever sent me any evidence to disprove that. The only evidence I get substantiates that claim. That's right. I get zero evidence to refute what I just said about Child Protective Services being a kidnapping cabal. All I get's evidence to prove it. Got another phone call coming in. We're going to take the call here now. Caller, thanks for calling in. You're live on the air. Please state your first name and what city in Montana you're calling from, please.
Yeah, this is Jim Booterbaugh, Whitehall, Montana, Senate District 38 candidate.
Hello, Jim. Good to have you on the show. You've been on the broadcast many times on EIV Radio. So much appreciate you calling in. Do you have a comment on Debbie Westlake and this outrageous video that this interview that I played a little bit earlier?
Yeah, my introduction to this was on Facebook with John Walton and his grandkids and what he went through with that. Then the Newmeyers got a hold of me, and I've talked with them several times. I've been on the street with them a couple of times. My wife and I both holding signs with them. And then there was Debbie, and now Debbie's daughter. I mean, where does it stop? It stops where we make it stop, and that's the only way it'll ever stop. Is if we step up there and say, "Hey, this has got to end."
Well, that's the reason that we're doing these shows, and that's the reason I've done literally hundreds of shows on my other network with and talked to actual parents. Do you know, Jim? I've had at least 3 parents on my program that have had false drug tests where they've got proof from 4 and 5 different drug agencies on the same day, but the only one that's positive is the CPS drug test. That's the only one that ends up positive. I've had CPS leave kits behind, drug testing kits, and people have poured water through it, and it came up positive for drugs. This is how criminals operate, right? This is how criminals operate. They have it's a well-oiled, well-funded a machine with practically no accountability, Jim. Some accountability, some auditing needs to be done. No parent should ever have their children taken ever without having a jury trial or due process of law, which is a jury trial if they choose. Any thoughts on that, Jim?
Well, yeah, the accountability part is the part that lets them get away with it. Years ago, a sad story. Years ago, I was in California, and we lost a baby in a trailer fire. And in the state of California, we got wind that the state of California was going to charge. I was at work, and they were going to charge my wife with neglect and take our other kids away. My first wife, and her parents, because his grandparents on the mom's side lived in Alaska, so we sent the kids up there so that they were out of reach. But if we wouldn't have gotten wind that they were coming for our kids, we'd be in the same boat. And we'd already lost we'd already lost a baby in a fire, and they turn around and try to take the others. How can you do that?
Jim, I've had people on the show that have lost their children, and after when they lose their rights, they lose their parental rights, and their children are gone forever. We've had multiple cases where the social workers come out and point their finger in their face and say, "They're ours now. You lost them. We got them." As these parents are just devastated, they're crushed that their children have been taken, and they'll probably never see them again because they don't release where they go to because they don't want them causing problem with the foster parent. So a lot of times they don't even know where their children are. They're precious children, and they're mocked by the social workers because they lost. This is what goes on. This is, folks, if you think this is, I'm telling you, I wish I was making this up. I really do. I wish all this was made up. It's not. It's not, sadly. Jim, anything else you want to say before we let you go, brother? Thanks so much for calling in.
It has got to end. Thank you for taking my call, Jim.
You're quite welcome. Thanks, Jim.
Bye-bye.
Nothing gets me more upset than dealing with this, folks. I mean, literally, this is. I mean, think about that in a society, how you treat your children. I mean, these children are getting kidnapped. And you know what? A lot of people want. I talk to a lot of people. You know what they say? Yeah, I didn't want to talk about that. I don't even want to think about that. Now, that's something. It's just too heavy for me, man. That's too heavy for me. I don't want to deal with it. Really? Heavy for you? Heavy for you? How about if I've had 4 parents on my program here. One I'm doing a regular video series with that I've had 7 children taken by CPS. 4 different families had 7 children taken. Terry and Mark, I'm interviewing them again this week. 7 children taken by CPS. You don't think it's heavy for them? Yeah, it's heavy. Wait till the stuff starts coming out that's on these laptops and all the stuff that you've been finding out they've been doing to children that is unspeakable. We can't even speak about it on this program because I don't want to upset people so much. This is all coming out. And this is all going to be linked back. And you're going to find out that one of the suppliers of these children to these criminal scum is Child Protective Services. That's right. It's a pipeline. It's a pipeline for these people. We've identified multiple child kidnapping rings all across the country. But the problem is the judge is involved, the sheriff's involved, the local FBI is involved, the hospital's involved, the teachers are involved. I'm not joking. Wish I was making it up again. Right? This is a daily occurrence across the country. Every single day this goes on. And it happened in Montana. As you can see now, look at the story on Montana Daily Gazette. Just had the person that's subject of that story, Debbie Westlake, and her daughter Kayla, on the program a little bit earlier. If you want to check that replay out, you can go to the Northwest Liberty News YouTube channel for now and check that out. We've got a couple minutes left, and we're going to bring Tom Millett on the program here, and we're going to take a call from Brenda Roscoe's, who's we're going to switch gears here more towards the Flathead in a moment. But if you want to call in and get one more comment in before we switch over and bring Tom on, you can call here at 563-999-3617. 563-999-3617. And I would like to get a commitment from all legislators, certainly all conservative legislators. If you truly are a conservative legislator, I would like to get a commitment from you that you will do everything you can in your power to stop the madness from Child Protective, from DPHHS, and from the wholesale kidnapping of children without due process. I would think that if every one of the legislators that are going to go to Helena here in January, I bet they'd want due process if someone was taking their children. I'm sure they would. I'm sure they probably would. Put yourself in these poor parents' situations. A lot of times they can't even afford. They can't afford an attorney ever. So they have a state attorney who, looks at their case for 5 minutes and says, "Just be quiet. We'll take care of it." And next thing you know, the kids are gone. Routinely. Every day in America. So if you're a prayerful person, pray for Debbie Westlake and her family, that this situation is resolved and their family is reunited again. Folks, I mean, I know you don't believe this, but they'll do it to you too. They will do it to you too. If you think I haven't done it, you think you're insulated, you think that you're going to be able to avoid it. You might, but some of the people that they go after, you're just as vulnerable as everybody else. We all have to stand up and stop this tyranny, because when they do it to your neighbor, they do it to you too. That's what we have to get back to in this country, is realizing that it's not every man or woman for themselves, is that we're all in this together, right? That's what we have to come to the conclusion of. Until we get to that point, none of this stuff is ever going to get repaired, okay? Right? Don't be just in it for yourself. We have to be in this together if we're going to defeat this tyranny. That's the formula. It's not rocket science. All right, we're going to bring Tom here on the show. I hope Tom's ready. I don't know. He's over there next door, the office next door. I don't want to hit him without unawares. But Tom, I'm going to be bringing you on live in a minute. Go ahead and put the headset on. So he's next door there, and I was going to take a commercial break here when I brought Tom on, but I just did one. So we're going to bring Tom on here on the show, and so we'll do that now and see if we can get Tom here. There he is. There he is, Tom. Tom Millett. Thanks so much for joining us here on the broadcast. Oh boy, let me wind down. Let me wind down a little bit, man. Let me unmute your phone there, or unmute your line. It's gonna be, you might get a message on the screen, Tom, that asks you to unmute that. Just go ahead and take your mouse and click that if you can. Do you see it there? There you go. Tom, thanks so much for joining us here on the broadcast. I'm a little bit wired up over this whole thing. This whole, kidnapping of children thing gets me a little bit upset. So I'm gonna calm down a little bit here. I'm gonna have you introduce yourself. I don't know if you may have sent it. If you sent it, I didn't get it in time, but I do a brief introduction here. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to you. Tom is a local Montana patriot and activist, as it's stated there on the screen. He was instrumental in helping really the folks here in Flathead assemble together, and he was a strong voice in front of the health department to help make sure that we didn't get closed down once again here. Tom, please go ahead and since your first time on the show, please give a little bit of background about yourself. I think Brendan's going to be calling in about 10 minutes, and then we'll have you for the remainder of the hour. Tom Millett, go ahead and please, you have the floor. Thanks so much for being here.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Yeah. Well, my name is Tom Millett. I live here in the Flathead Valley. I actually don't live in Kalispell itself. I live outside the valley in Marion. A little bit about me. I consider myself a liberty-loving patriot and a promoter of freedom and independence. Just a little background for me so everybody knows where I'm coming from. Number one, I am not a lawyer. Never want to be. I kind of study the Constitution a lot, so I probably know a lot more than most lawyers do about the Constitution because they're all into, the business side of it, whatever they do. I have a very low opinion of lawyers myself because I don't see them stepping up to the plate when it really matters, like in the situation that we're in. But I don't want to paint all lawyers with a broad brush like that. I mean, there are some, very, very few out there that are doing the right thing. But my background is when I graduated high school, when I was 17, I joined the Navy right away, and I served 8 years. I served on 2 aircraft carriers. I went to nuclear power school in the Navy. It's the toughest school that they have. I graduated there. I was in the Persian Gulf War in 1991. I got an honorable discharge. And then after that, I went into my background was nuclear engineering and stuff like that. So I went to work at a nuclear power plant in Michigan and stayed there for about 8 years. I was an electrician, supervisor, had a management role there. Moved to Las Vegas after that because I didn't want to work at a nuclear power plant anymore. That's a whole different story of, what's going on at nuclear power plants and stuff like that. But I just decided I was kind of bored, didn't want to do that anymore. So I really wanted to operate power plants like I did in the Navy. And so I went to Vegas, got a job at a fossil-fired power plant, a natural gas power plant, worked at a couple of those around the Las Vegas Valley, and did that for about 10 years. Worked my way up to lead operator, supervisor, into management again. And then I finally got sick and tired of doing that. And then a lot of Californians were moving into Las Vegas at that time. And they were bringing their liberal politics, and crime was starting to go up. And so I decided I need to get the heck out of there. So that's a story in itself, but I finally found my way to the Flathead Valley, and I've been here since 2012. And when I'm not doing, what I do now is consulting work mainly for the power industry, telecommunications, electrical industries. When I'm not doing that, then I'm studying the Constitution. My latest project is this COVID mess, digging into this data and statistics and scientific reports around that, educating myself about that because I saw firsthand, or first off, when this first came out, my gut told me something was not right with this. There's shenanigans going on, and sure enough, there are. And I don't know if you want to get into that today, but I'm sure that there's shenanigans. There's shenanigans going on with a lot of things around COVID. And so I decided to, you want me to get into how I actually got into this stuff in the Valley, how I got involved and what my tipping point was, the line in the sand?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We cover shenanigans here on this broadcast, so go right ahead.
All right. So I guess it was about sometime in the early July It was when Whitefish, Montana was starting to consider their mask ordinance. The state hadn't done their mask ordinance yet, but they were starting to consider it. And I saw that it was either on social media or in the newspaper or something like that. I don't really read the newspapers all that much because they're a bunch of liars. So I got wind of that and started thinking about that. And I knew right away that that was not right. You know, how does the government, where did we as a people delegate to the government that they can make me wear a mask? That was my big concern. And then I started looking at the big picture because I'd heard that masks were being instituted across the country, different states were doing it. And I put two and two together and I said, well, it's going to be masks today and vaccines tomorrow. So that was my line in the sand, because I don't know if you want to even get into, that's a whole nother can of worms, getting into the vaccine issue. And that's many stories on that.
Well, what we can do is, I think Brenda's going to be calling in here in about 5 minutes, and we're going to talk about, you know, the latest, which we covered on Montana Daily Gazette, about them trying to shut down Sykes for one, and I know others. And I want to say they even sent Scotty something yesterday or the day before. I'm not familiar with exactly all that. I was kind of talking to Brenda, but she's going to be dishing that out here in just a couple of minutes when she calls in. So as a prelude to that, Tom, and sorry I butchered your last name. It's Malay. I'm sure I'm probably not the only one that's done that, but let's talk about this mask thing leading up here to Brenda's call, and then after Brenda gets off the air from us, sure, we can talk about vaccines. We can talk about all that stuff. I've done shows on all those things. So tell us, let's the mask thing here. We of course in Flathead Valley here, we have the commissioners, the county commissioners, but the health. I don't forget the health officer. Is that what they're called? The health officer? I'm going to call it health officer or something. They have, because of something, I don't want to say it's a long time ago, and I've talked to legislators and they told me how long ago it was. It was long time ago, dozens of years ago, where they passed some law where the health officer has the right to really pretty much dictatorial authority almost, and they have no, they're not elected. So this is the problem, and I think you're going to be dealing with this. You come up in the next legislative session, but that is sort of a groundwork here, Tom. Give us a situation here in Flathead Valley, and we'll talk about the when you went before the board, and then we'll have, I'm sure Brenda will probably be calling on probably shortly thereafter, and then we'll take her call. Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, just picking back up where I kind of left off. So it was the Whitefish mask ordinance, tiny hamlet of Whitefish, and that's where I drew the line in the sand. I started really doing some research on things, found a lot of science. A lot of people don't talk, well, the science isn't there for masks. Well, at the very least, the science is unsettled, in my opinion. So when the science is unsettled, then you have to default to liberty, of course. So I did what I needed to do. I tried to send emails to those counselors up there, telling them that, you need to look at the science. That's what the law says. Actually, a lot of people don't know that in the MCA, the Title 50 of the MCA in Montana, which is the Montana Code Annotated, which has to do with health, there's actually a statute that says they have to use the best available scientific evidence when they exercise their health powers. So I pointed out a lot of things like that. Obviously, they passed their mask ordinance, and then 2 days later, 1 or 2 days later, then the governor did pass his statewide mask directive, which is, obviously as we all know, it's my personal opinion, it's unconstitutional, it's unenforceable. So that's what got me rolling on this ball. And then it was just downhill from there, everybody going mask crazy and stuff like that. This latest battle that we're dealing with, specifically the 4 businesses that were targeted by, I don't call him Governor Bullock anymore. He's the former governor. He has violated his oath of office, and he's really not the governor in my eyes. He's just Steve Bullock, and he's just a little tyrant is basically what he is. And that's my personal honest opinion of the guy. But what he did is he came into Flathead County because obviously our health board decided in a 5-3 vote about 2 weeks ago to not institute any more controls, any more restrictions specifically on large gatherings, which I applaud them for. And I ain't going to say I don't take credit for any of that. I'm just one wheel in the cog of trying to get people motivated and to speak out. I give them talking points. I give them just things to say, using the data. I'm very big on that, the scientific data on the law. That's what we got to go by. We're a nation of law, not of men. So that's what I always tell people, and that's the talking points that I give them. Unfortunately, what happened was, and here's the good thing. Our county attorney specifically has really stuck up. He's really come down on the side of the Constitution, because when the health board went to him with their complaints against certain businesses that they have over and over, they call them, the troubled children in the valley, or whatever they want to call them. I call them the ones that are allowing their customers to choose whether or not they want to quote unquote mask up. So what he decided to do was he actually, in my opinion, he kind of skirted around the attorney general, because the way the law reads, what you have to do, the process is health officer has to go to the county attorney to bring a complaint in district court against the egregious business, that they want to use the court system and the law to enforce their dictates. And the county attorney, to his good credit, he said, no, I'm not going to prosecute these people. I'm not going to bring complaints against them, because number one, the biggest thing is you can't prove that any kind of COVID spread came from their business. And that he's exactly right. So he came down on the side of freedom and liberty and common sense, and using his thinking. And I guess Bullock didn't like that. So what he did, he has the option. He can do this because he is the executive of the state, and the State Department of Public Health and Human Services, the state health department. He is the executive. He told them, go into Flathead County, and instead of using the local health board to enforce his mandate, he's using the state health agency, which he can do. Now, here's the deal. They cannot just go in. People don't understand this, and they need to know that the state health agency and the health board, local health board, they cannot just go into a business and say, give me your keys, you're shutting down. They cannot do that. They have to go in and get a court order, and the sheriff has to enforce that court order. That's our way of doing things. That's what the law says. So what they did is they kind of said, okay, we'll do that. But see, a state agency just can't go to court. They need a lawyer to go to court for them. And the law gives them two lawyers that they can use. They can use either the county attorney in the county where the action is going to happen, or they can use the attorney general. And to my knowledge, the attorney general has never signed off on that. So what they did, and this is what I've heard, and this is secondhand knowledge from the county attorney, because somebody asked him, how can they do this? How can the state come in to Flathead County and just file papers in court? They need an attorney to do that. And as far as they knew, the attorney general didn't do that. Well, the guy said, and the county attorney said, he said that Steve Bullock deputized some lawyers to act as like deputy attorney generals. So they're kind of, in my opinion, it's kind of skirting around the attorney general. So I'd really like to know where the attorney general stands on this stuff. Why is he so silent?
He's not going to say anything. He's hiding under his desk. Brenda Roscos is called in here. We're gonna bring Brenda in on the show here, and because we've only got a limited amount of time left with this with the call-in line here. So we're gonna bring Brenda in, Tom, and we're gonna have her talk about this, the local businesses and the pressure that's being put on them. So let's bring her on the show here. Brenda, is that you, dear?
This is me. I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you just fine, Brenda. Thanks so much for calling in here on the broadcast. You're here with myself and Tom. You may have been listening, but we've been talking about this mask mandate and sort of, the draconian, overlords that are trying to muzzle us here in Flathead Valley. Tell us about the actions that's been taken here against the local businesses, if you don't mind, Brenda.
I will. Here's kind of what I know so far, and I've actually talked to 4 of the business owners out of 5. I'm going to just do a real brief thing here, and then I'm going to go into each one of them and state where they're at. So, as maybe most people know by now, there were 5 businesses that were targeted by Bullock and the Department of Health there in Helena since Friday. And like I said, I'll name them in a minute. So both the department and Bullock, they called for a temporary restraining order, which they wanted immediately implemented, but was, of course, overturned and not put into effect by our 3 judges and soon to be, 4, Heidi Albright, Dan Wilson, Amy Eddy, and I believe Robert Allison. Now, most of the court dates have been set for these hearings in early November, right? But these businesses actually have 21 days to reply to these complaints. But I want to make it very clear, these businesses are still open. So please go in mass. Please go, not in a mask, en masse, in large groups and support them heartily. Okay, now what's going on is we've got the Department of, Public Services here in Health and Human Services. They want to just work these issues out outside of hearings. I think Bullock would just prosecute these people to the hill to be good. But of course, they said they just want to work these things out outside of hearings, outside of court. Well, of course they do, because they just want businesses to roll over dead and do exactly what they say, right? They don't want any questions asked, so forth and so on. And I actually read an article, I think yesterday, where the Department of Health there in Helena stated that several businesses, I'm talking about these 5, right, had called in to say that they've been starting the process of implementing measures to resolve these issues. Now, whether that is true or not, I don't know. But I think that's possibly to pacify them, that, the health department in Helena at best. And I really haven't heard anything from these businesses stating that actually. And to my knowledge, these businesses are going to band together and fight against all this nonsense, is what I think is going to happen. So I'd like to name them off one by one. Now, the first one is the only one I haven't talked to personally, but that's the Remington Bar, Casino, and Restaurant in Whitefish. Okay, and so I do know that we have a group of patriots that go to different businesses and try to give them, support them and so forth. And so our patriotic group went up there yesterday and had lunch and stated the food was excellent. Be sure to support them by going in to eat and so forth. And their court hearing date is November 2nd. Now, the second one is Sykes Restaurant and Market and Pharmacy in Kalispell, which, of course, is run by the prominent and philanthropic business owner Ray Thompson, who is a personal friend of mine. He just happens to be a huge donor to the local Republican Party and a very conservative patriot, okay? Now, he does understand fully his constitutional rights. He will not comply with this in any shape or form. He proudly also stated that Sykes is a 123-year-old family-run business, and several of us went in there on Saturday, several local patriots. We went to Sykes for breakfast to show our support, and of course, Ray's lovely wife was there playing patriotic songs on the piano, and then we had a large crowd in there supporting them for, standing up for their rights. So please go, to these establishments and give them, your business in droves. So do you see what's happening here is Ray knows he's being targeted. He's known that for a long time, but Bullock would love to crush him. He is probably the biggest donor to the Republican Party here. I mean, think about that. So then we have, are you with me here, Jim? Can you hear me?
All good. Proceed. You're good.
Okay. Then we got Ferndale Market. Okay. Same thing. Very staunch Republican business, which, right, they're selling Trump paraphernalia or whatever, accessories and banners and flyers or whatever, right there in their business, right there at Ferndale Market. I did speak to the gentleman, wonderful guy who's the owner of that. Now, their court date is set for November 2nd. Like I said, they, God bless them, they are the ones who sponsored that alternative 4th of July parade there in Ferndale when it wasn't allowed because of this coronavirus nonsense. Big Fork wouldn't allow it there, downtown Big Fork, so they did an alternative one and paid for all of that, sponsored that, good for them in Ferndale. So do you see what we got going on here? These businesses are older businesses, several are conservative, they're definitely being targeted. Then we have the Your Turn Mercantile Gas Station in, Old Streeter's Corner, right there in Big Fork on the corner. Now, again, family business. This has been around a long, long time. I believe the owner's name is Doug White. He's super frustrated, right? Because he said, hey, I've tried to implement their safety measures. Gal was spoken, I think, in the paper as saying, or somewhere one gal came in their defense and stated that they've always, seen employees and patrons, so forth, most of them, right, wearing masks and so forth. But Doug stated, I've got some older veterans coming in here who are able to wear these masks and so forth, under the governor's mandate, and there's exceptions. He's not going to make people do that. he also stated, super concerned when I talked to him about this, very frustrated and upset, that across the street, I believe there's a liquor store across the street who had been taking pictures of their customers, right? This is what's been going on for the last week or so, and the health department stated they were going to be doing this. They were going to be checking in on businesses and checking them out, snooping around, doing what I think is illegal activity, right? Going in there unwelcome. One of them was bold enough. The next one is Scotty's Bar, Restaurant, Casino, and I did talk to the gal, owns it, great gal, talked to her for like an hour. She actually stated concerning that there was I believe a woman that went right in and was filming inside her casino and taking pictures of customers and literally had to be like asked to stop and asked to leave. Now, if there are private businesses, I'm talking to you here, Flathead Valley and Flathead County, if you see this happening on your property and your businesses, ask them to leave. That is trespassing. Nobody can stand right in your business. Now, across the street might be, outside your public property might be different, but to go into your establishment and do this is wrong and is illegal, and you can have them removed for trespassing. Now, as a side note, I have a close friend here who owns a tiny little bakery. She mentioned the other day that a gentleman came in and bought a pastry, no big deal, right? But she kind of happened to watch him. He went back and stood right across the street and snapped multiple pictures of her business, which she made her feel super uncomfortable. This was maybe 4 or 5 days
So
ago.
Brenda, are these statists all operating independently, or do you think there's some coordinative effort to enact this tyranny upon the rest of the population here?
I think a lot of these people that came in to do all of this are from Helena. I really do. Now, Tama Lee, whether she, who is the local health department officer, as you guys know, and a lot of people out there know, stated, I read somewhere that she said, although I don't believe everything she says by any means, that she had no idea these guys were even coming up here and doing this. So supposedly it's out of Helena, but I would not trust the local health officer here as far as I can throw her. So I don't totally know, but, it was said that the Helena was going to come up here and they were going to be, investigating, I think is the word that they used, right? So, one of the things also that the gal from Scotty said, let me look through here. What did she say? Oh, she said that as of a few days ago, they were served. Okay, they were served their papers at 5:30 on a Saturday night by a rather rude individual, probably from Helena, right? That said that they needed to shut down immediately. Well, we know that the temporary restraining order was overruled, by our judges here. Kudos to them for that. But one thing she said that was really concerning to me too, and I wanted to throw this out there to Flathead County, so this is a concern. She said, a few days before that happened, she said that she was lined up by people coming in, whatever, people out shopping and so forth around Thanksgiving, Christmas time. They make their Christmas parties and they reserve them there, like at Scotty's, I'm sure they do all these establishments. And they start canceling. Well, not because of this so much, but it's because of the COVID narrative hype, right? All testing. People are afraid to go out of their houses almost. Oh my gosh, we have 20 people wanting to go eat in a restaurant. We all better cancel. So I would like to say that we know that most of the people here who are tested, many of them aren't even sick. It's asymptomatic. Please go out, patronize these businesses, all businesses, but especially these 5 right now. And she goes, that hurts me financially. That's my bread and butter during that Thanksgiving, Christmas holiday season, and people are starting to cancel. So I urge everybody out there listening, go to these 5, whether you're going to buy gasoline or whether you're going to go get a beer or whether you're going to go get some items that you need, and again, it's Scotty's Bar, it's Your Turn Merchant, which is here in Kalispell, Sykes Restaurant, Pharmacy and Market here in Kalispell. We've got the Your Turn Mercantile, which is the old Streeter's Corner, and then the Ferndale Market in Ferndale there, and then the Remington Bar, Casino, and Restaurant up there in Whitefish. But there are several common things that we're seeing among these. Again, let's talk about it. Several are conservative, especially politically speaking, patriotic, older, run family businesses, been around for years. And, Jim, one of the things that they strategically, I think, tried to do in Helena to give the appearance of widespread COVID, which we know is not happening, like it's everywhere, right? We've got 2 businesses that have been targeted in Kalispell, one in Big Fork, one in Ferndale and Whitefish. There's no mistake in them going so far reaching all over the valley. But we know this isn't true because according to Travis Honor, who's a county attorney, he's not going to approach any of this. He said none of these businesses, to his knowledge, have been COVID spreaders in the village. And he goes, I'm not going to approach them as he would an actual crime, nor will the sheriff approach them, but they want to make it sound like these guys would. You know, our owners are frustrated. They're going to join in together on this. I know that they are.
Brenda, we're running low. We're running just low here on time here because we have a limited amount of time here on this. And we've got Tom on here. I think he wants to bring up a couple of other things. We're going to talk about some of that and other things. What can people do? I know you're involved in the some local groups here, some Facebook groups, and then of course you guys are not just Facebook groups. You have taken, you know, your shoe leather on the ground, you know, boots on the ground, which is what you really need to do, folks. I mean, as I've stated before in the program, you know, social media is good. And it's good that you're doing that and getting the word out, but nothing replaces actual physically being boots on the ground and letting these people know that you're a real person, not an avatar hiding behind, you know, in someone's basement. Where can people find out more about what the groups that you're in, especially here in the Flathead Valley, Brenda, and how can they join or learn more information or get out if they want to do petitioning? I'm sure there's probably not the last petition drive that's going to be done here, like the one that just got completed. Where can people find out more about that stuff, Brenda?
Well, you know, reality is most of these groups, kind of like ours, is a little bit on the private side, on Facebook on purpose, because we just don't want a bunch of infiltrators. But if people want to just go ahead and hit me up on Facebook personally, just under Brenda Roskos, Roskos on Facebook. If they just hit me up, I can send them a personal message from then of how to join certain groups and so forth and so on. Because there's several Patriot groups that are kind of banding together now, and especially the biggest way people can support them right now is to go to these businesses, purchase an item, give these guys a high five, tell them you believe them, you're supporting them, and really spread the word on your Facebook pages, your emails, and so forth to go to those 5 businesses: Ferndale Market, Sykes Restaurant Market, Pharmacy, the Your Turn Mercantile, what was the other one? Remington Bar and Casino, and Scotty's. So please be just patronizing, go into these places. And, you know, I would not be surprised if a few didn't kind of crop up here and there, but to just be acknowledging these guys and going in and shopping and making reservations to go in and take large groups.
That's right.
So I would do that. Again, if somebody wants to get a hold of me personally, please do it, and I won't keep you longer, but you guys doing a great job there. Thanks, Tom and Jim, and super excited to keep supporting these businesses. And I don't think they're going to just lie down dead in this. They're going to bond together, definitely. So,
Brenda Roskos, thanks so much. Appreciate you, all the work that you do here and here in the Valley. And, you know, when you stand up, it becomes contagious, folks. And I thanks so much, Brenda. We're going to go ahead and drop off the line here from you. Thanks so much.
All right, sounds good. You guys have a good day. And
thanks, you too. Sorry to cut you off there. That's the thing, Tom. I think you need to probably hit the mute button. That's the thing, Tom. It becomes contagious when people stand up and they see other people stand up. Then it becomes, you know, they see that they're not alone, and it sort of gives those people that maybe, you know, it's like I've used this analogy before. If you've ever been to the dance floor and the dance floor is empty, and then that one single person goes out to the dance floor and starts, and the next thing you know, 10 minutes later, the place is packed with people on the dance floor, but it took that one person going out there first, and then everybody else kind of followed. That's the situation I think that we're in now. We need to have people step up and stand up, and I think others will follow. Tom, any thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, I totally believe that. You know, if you look at the cross section of society as a general, you see that most people are followers in this world. There's very few leaders. That's just a fact, and that's just the way it is. But you'll see that there's actually a thing. There's a book written by a guy named Malcolm Gladwell, I believe his name is, and it's called The Tipping Point. And there's actually, I think it's like 18% of the people, once you get to that level of support, that's called the tipping point. That's where you start to see some really, really big action happening. And that's all it takes. It just takes a very small, I think Margaret Mead said it, and I'll just kind of paraphrasing, you know, nothing ever changes by big groups. It's always that small little, you know, intense group of people that start something, and then everybody else jumps on the bandwagon. It's the same old thing. You've always heard about the bandwagon. Everybody jump on the bandwagon. Well, somebody's got to get the horses going and got to get that wagon started. But once it gets started and rolling down the highway, then it gets on.
We're rolling out, by the way. We're rolling out here on Blog Talk Radio, so you're going to hear our friendly Blog Talk gal come up a couple of times and make the announcement. Our show's almost over, so don't be startled. No one's busting into our call. She's coming up here right now, as a matter of fact.
90 seconds.
There you go. We'll be done with this broadcast here in about 90 seconds, but we're going to continue to go on, folks. I just wanted to say, if you're listening in right now on Blog Talk, you can go over to northwestlibertynews.com YouTube channel or Facebook page, and this is being broadcast live on both of those platforms. And again, we'll be disconnecting it from the Blog Talk Network here just in about 1 minute. And we so much appreciate you tuning in here to the show. Montana Gazette Radio.
60 seconds.
Montana Gazette Radio, MontanaGazetteRadio.com and MontanaDailyGazette.com. Okay, Tom, if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, probably a duck. Is it any surprise that Bullock is going after conservative outlets? I mean, Ray Thompson is one of the, just like Brenda said, probably one of the most generous contributors to conservative causes, and so many other things that that man does behind the scenes that no one even knows about, that's never publicized or never broadcast. I mean, he doesn't seek glory and that type of stuff. He's not the kind of guy that he is, but he does so much for so many behind the scenes. To go after someone like him in these other places
10 seconds.
Seemingly just because they're conservatives. This sounds like a hit job to me, Tom. What say you?
Well, yeah, it gives all the appearance of it. I'll tell you that. I ain't going to go so far as to say he specifically targeted those businesses. We'll never know. But man, I'll tell you what, just like you said, if it looks like a duck and it walks like a duck,
goodbye,
then, make your own conclusions. But it's very strong evidence that something fishy, the shenanigans are going on with certain businesses in the Valley. I'll just leave it at that.
Well, Tom, talk to me if you can about how you've seen, because I've seen it here on this show. I've been doing this here with Northwest Liberty News for many, many years now. Been in many different outlets. Been, over and over again, been trying to give the call out to people to wake up, stand up, take the red pill, get involved, do something. We're under tyranny. I mean, you have as well. Maybe you just haven't done it on a radio platform or had a website to do it. But I think now, finally, and I was talking to my wife about that, it seems finally now, this tipping point that you're talking about, we are fastly approaching that like no other time, I think, in history. And I think some of the revelations that are coming out now, you see already, did you see the number one Google search just yesterday or day before was, how do I change my presidential vote? After the whole Biden laptop thing came out and they found out that basically he was really guilty of treason and at least sedition, that's for sure. Do you see, Tom, and the stuff that you've done in the years? I know this is not your first rodeo. You've been involved in this stuff and activism for a while. Are you seeing, like I am, more people rising up than ever, and more people like soccer moms there's soccer moms now that are involved in this stuff and realize the criminality of what's going on? That's almost unprecedented. Any thoughts on that, Tom?
Oh yeah, I definitely believe that. I see a lot more people, what they call the silent majority, coming out. And I'll just tell you right now, I was one of those silent majority types. I never spoke up. I never did anything, never got involved. I've always known about this stuff. I took my red pill way back in, I think it was 1999. It was that long ago. But I never said anything. I just did my thing, lived my life, because I hadn't reached there wasn't that line in the sand for me yet, because I think everybody has that, the proverbial straw that breaks the camel's back. And for me, that was the mask thing back in July of this year, and it's going to be different for everybody. But I see a lot of people since this COVID craziness, as I call it, started happening back in March. I see a lot more people starting to, what they call, wake up and see, wait, there's something wrong here. I see a lot of patriots that have always been out there. They're starting to get a little more involved. They're starting to get a little more vocal. And like you say, the soccer moms, one I can think of in particular, Taylor Butterfield, you've had her on your show before. I mean, she's a fireball, man. She's out there doing things. You know, she did the petition thing about a month ago. Uh, I think that took a lot of toll off of her, but she's still out there. You know, I don't know if you know, but she started a GoFundMe account for the 4 businesses to try to raise some money for a legal defense forum.
No, I didn't know.
So
I have to call Taylor, and I didn't know she did that. Yeah, she
actually
she's
did
dynamite. She's dynamite, all right.
Yeah, she did that last night, so you probably haven't even seen it. I just happened to see it. I was actually the first one to donate to it. That's how early it was in the process for that. But yeah, she's one. There's people out there that I've seen that I've never seen before, but they're starting to get involved. And I'll tell you what, it's not just because of the mask thing. It's not because of COVID. They're starting to get involved in other issues too. Uh, I don't know if you know, but there's a group of us that meet. We call ourselves loosely. We call ourselves the Flathead Liberty Coalition. I don't know if you've ever been to one of our meetings. We meet at the Red Lion Inn at 6 p.m. Anybody's welcome to come there. We're all about taking action, you know, get information, get some marching orders. We have speakers from time to time in the Patriot community, not even in the Patriot community. We have elected leaders come and talk to us and give us their perspective on what's going on. I mean, we've had the sheriff come and talk to us, and we've had a good Q&A with him. I think he was there for an hour and a half, and he took a lot of questions. You know, people are concerned. Where does he stand on all this stuff? We had one of the county commissioners come and speak, do another Q&A. I'm going to be inviting the mayor of Kalispell to come talk to us, Mark Johnson, and that's what we do. We just get out on the issues. You know, there's a lot of issues out there. It's mass, it's vaccines, it's 5G, it's Agenda 21. And if you don't think that stuff doesn't happen here in the Flathead Valley, you think we're insulated, you're totally mistaken. Those issues are happening here in our county, and you need to get involved. If you're worried about anything, if you're concerned about what your future is, the future of your kids and grandkids, then you need to get involved. And it doesn't take much. It's not going out there and picketing and having a sign. You know, you can do that if you want. There's different things for different people. Everybody has their own skill set. My skill set is a lot of research, looking at the data, looking at the science, putting things down on paper. And yes, I do go and speak to the county commissioners every once in a while. I look at this as a job. I just educate people. I don't yell. I don't scream. That doesn't get anything done. That's not the American way. The American way is to change things with the system. And as of right now, we can change things with the system. And so that's what I've dedicated to do. Talk to the your city elected officials, go talk to them. Do a Zoom call if you have to, you know, if they've sequestered themselves behind the camera for now because they're so afraid of COVID, you know, that's fine. Send your emails, be very respectful, and just talk the issues to these folks. That's how you're gonna do it. And then talk to your neighbors. Talk to your neighbors about what you're doing, the issues. You'll be surprised. A lot of people think the same way as you do. You're not alone. And I want to give that to other people too. A lot of these elected officials, and I ain't going to name names, but I had one elected official call me the other day because I wrote them an email, and they kind of said, you know, it kind of feels like we're isolated here. You know, we don't have the support of the people. And I had to guarantee that person. I said, look, you are not alone. There are a lot of people out here that really, really support you for standing up for truth and liberty and independence. So don't feel that way. So it does go a long way when you do email. And if you don't think these city councilors, county commissioners don't look at your email, you are totally wrong. They look at every single one of them. I am convinced of that. So everything makes a difference.
Though any of them that are watching this broadcast right now, or would watch this broadcast after this live version, my email address is underneath all of my videos. You reach out to me, and I'd be happy to have you on here on the broadcast if you'd like. As long as you're a person that stands for liberty and stands for constitutional principles, you're welcome on this show anytime. If you're sort of a statist scoundrel type, don't bother calling. And I think that, you know, we've been tricked, we've been conned for our whole lives. I mean, the stuff that we see and that they've put forth, in front of us for us to consume. A lot of it's just been lies and propaganda and disinformation. A lot of that spell that they've had on people is being broken. The spell, almost like the spell is being broken, the spell of tyranny that they've had on us. Do you think we're ready in this society as it is now? You see, some parts are burning other people's towns down and their businesses, and they're pulling them out of the car and beating them up. And you can't wear a red hat; you get smashed in the head with a brick. Do you think we're ready in society for that paradigm shift of, as I stated before, it's not that every man is in it for themselves. Is it that we're all in it together, right? That the mindset right now is every man for themselves. It's got to be we're all in it together, or I don't see how we're going to be able to continue to move forward. Do you think we're ready for that paradigm shift, Tom?
Boy, I can't talk to that. That's a big question. It's a big question. I don't want to say either way. Alls I see a lot of people waking up, and that's a good sign. That's all I can really say. A lot of people waking up. Going on to a different note, you want me to talk about what's going on in Whitefish?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we want to talk about that. Yeah, sure, absolutely. We got like 20 minutes left. Please do.
Okay, I got all these issues that I'm working on and looking at, and if I can't get through them today, then just have me back another day or give me a phone call, and I'll inform people of what's going on also. But let's talk about Whitefish. So real quick, I'll try to get it as quick as I can. So back on last Monday, the 19th, the city of Whitefish had a working session, council meeting working session. They did it via Zoom. I didn't see it live, but I listened to the replay because they post them all on YouTube, I believe. And it was an hour and 20-minute long working session. The first 20 minutes, it was all about city business. And then the last hour, all they talked about was COVID. And how they disappointed they were in the health board, because this was, a couple days later after the health board did their 5-3 vote to not enforce any more restrictions on the county-wide. So Whitefish got together and, they were lamenting that the health board wasn't doing anything and that they're the last line of defense to do something. It's all about, with these status people, it's all about, oh, we got to do something. We got to do something. And you know what? That's a totally different conversation, but there's a proper place for government to do things, and then there's a proper place for government not to do things, and most of the time they shouldn't be doing anything. Okay, but that's a whole different ball game and a whole different conversation. But what they did is they went back and forth talking about what can we do to stop the spread of COVID. That's their big concern. And what they came up with is an emergency ordinance. What they will do on their meeting tonight, which is October 26th, Monday night at 7:10 p.m. in the city of Whitefish. It's not going to be they're still doing their Zoom call council meeting, so you can't go there, but you can send emails and you can get on the agenda. You can get on there to speak, probably for maybe a minute or so, public comment. But they're proposing an emergency ordinance for the city of Whitefish that will only cover the weekend, the Halloween weekend, which is Friday the 30th and Saturday night the 31st. But like I tell everybody, don't just think that this is for the holiday weekend, these restrictions on public gatherings that they want to do. I don't believe so. I believe that if they see that they can pass this, then they'll just quietly pass this emergency, or just change the dates on the emergency ordinance to reflect all the way through the end of the year. And let me go through some of the things that they want to, the restrictions. And this is in the emergency ordinance. You can go find it on the City of Whitefish's website, download their agenda for tonight, and you can see it. And this is about the only thing. This is actually an emergency session that they're holding, or a special session, they call it. So what they want to do, here are the provisions. I won't read the whole thing, but the first one is no public or private gatherings larger than 10 individuals can be held unless they can maintain 6 feet social distance. So you notice that, no public or private gatherings. It sounds to me like they want to get into people's houses, or they're trying to regulate people's houses. Maybe they're thinking, well, private gathering, maybe you have a private gathering at a bar or restaurant or something, sequestered in a back room. I don't know, but it seems kind of ominous. No public or private gathering larger than 10 individuals. The second one. Now, most of these next ones all affect restaurants, bars, breweries, distilleries, and casinos. Okay, so This isn't in your private home. These are all in public places of public accommodation. So they want to limit all these places, restaurants, bars, breweries, distilleries, casinos to 50% capacity. Now, currently they're at 75% capacity in accordance with phase 2 of Steve Bullock's directive for reopening Montana. So they want to go down to 50. It's interesting to note that when they were in their working session, some of the counselors were recommending 25% capacity. 25% capacity. That's a killer. And even though you may not like the mayor of Whitefish, his name is John Mulfield, you know, and I'm sure he's a Democrat on the liberal side, but he actually stuck up for the businesses in this respect. And he said, look, we can't, that's a deal breaker. We cannot do 25%. You know, he made the compromise. Okay, we can maybe do 50%. So he got him to go from 25 to 50. So the next one is restaurants, bars, casinos, close their doors, everybody out of the building by 11:30, Friday night and Saturday night. 11:30 curfew, basically. Get out of the restaurants. Restaurants, bars, no more than 6 individuals at any table. That's one of the restrictions that they want. No more than 6 at a table. So they're actually, you know, regulating table size.
So a family of 10 that lives together all during the day, they can't show up at the restaurant and all sit together at the same table, even though I know some people that have 10, 12 people in the family. You mean they can't all go out to dinner together? That seems a little bit odd. Oh.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they could probably go in the same restaurant, but they have to be at different tables, 6 at one, 4 at the other. The next one is if you can't stand at a bar, at the bar and be served. No sitting or standing at bars or counters. That's another one. The next one is restaurants, bars. Okay. They just put this caveat in there. You still have to do the face covering thing. No big deal. Then the next one is kind of egregious to me. So now they're getting in, they're kind of like doing what California is doing. You know, the big thing in California and some of these other states early on was to limit the houses of worship size. So what they propose is the last piece of this is houses of worship may exceed the group size of 10, subject to the limit of 50% capacity and compliance with social distance. So they're going into the church house and they're saying you can only have 50% capacity in your church house. So
wait. Separation of church and state, Tom. Separation of church and state. Hold on a minute. Oh, wait. Isn't that what the other side always says? Oh, hey, you know, that's what their always argument, right? About the abortion thing. Hey, keep their church out of my body. Hey, how about separation of church and state? Why can they come in? How can the state come into a religious venue and tell them what to do? That doesn't sound like separation to me. Please continue.
Well, the fact of the matter is that they can't. We know that. You know, just go look at what John MacArthur's doing over in California. You know, he's got one of the biggest churches over there in Southern California, and he's being hassled. But, you know, praise God that he's sticking up for his rights and his congregants' rights. So, and I think they messed with the wrong person because he's got a very large congregation. They have a lot of money. They have lawyers, and they're taking them to task. So the way it breaks down, what I suggest for people to do, if you live in Whitefish, and even if you don't live in Whitefish, you know, if you shop in Whitefish, you do business in Whitefish, you travel through Whitefish, or you're concerned about freedom and liberty because this is, you know, many think, oh, it's just Whitefish, I'll just let them do what they want to do. You know, that's the wrong thing to do because eventually it's going to come to your town. You know, I'm not saying it's going to come to Kalispell. I'm not going to say it's going to come to Flathead County, but it may. So like I always tell everybody, you know, just like Barney Fife told us in the Andy Griffith Show, you got to nip it in the bud. That's my philosophy, nip it in the bud. So if you're worried about this stuff, you know, send a nice email, very respectful, and just tell them what you think about this. You know, they look at all these comments. And if you want to go and find the email address, just go to cityofwhitefish.org, I think they call you, or just Google it, City of Whitefish. Navigate your way over to the government side, to the agenda, you know, and they have it right there. It's email the city clerk your comments and they'll get included in the comments and tell them what you think. And I'll tell you what, there are out of there's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 members of the city council and 1 mayor. So there's 7 elected officials. From what I could tell, 3 of them are what I call hardcore. They're hardcore. They're not going to change their mind whatsoever. They're all for these restrictions. There's 2 that are against them. And then there's one that's kind of on the fence. And so it's not all is lost in Whitefish, because the deal is an emergency ordinance. What people don't understand, an emergency ordinance has different requirement for passage than just a regular ordinance. An emergency ordinance requires 2/3 of all the elected members, or of the city council, I'm sorry. So they need 4 out of the 6 to vote yes. They absolutely need it. The mayor's vote doesn't count in this. They need 4 out of the 6. They got 3, probably. It depends though. One of them might flip. The other 2, they just said flat out no when they, and I won't get into why they said or how they said no, but I know for a fact they said no. And then there's one that is on the fence. If you want some talking points, I don't know who. Well, I posted some of this stuff on Facebook, certain private groups. Just like Brenda said, you got to be careful out there. There's a lot of weird people floating around out there, and they try to make trouble. So we kind of keep this stuff on the lowdown. But if you're on an email list, you probably have already seen my email on this. I give talking points on it. Who the actual members are that are on who that member is on the fence. I don't know if I should tell people's. What do you think, James? Do you think I should tell people who these guys, who the commissioner is that's on the fence? Not that it's going to really matter.
Well, if people want to call out, and yeah, I mean, if he like you said earlier, Tom, someone said to you, well, I feel like I'm on an island here. Maybe this guy's kind of feeling the same thing, same way. People that are listening to this broadcast, if they want to call up and let them know, hey, listen, we support you, do the right thing, because basically these people are really worried about getting reelected. I mean, sad as it is, that's really one of their main, maybe not so much locally in the Whitefish City Council, but in a larger sense. But yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. We're not going to defame the person or, call them back, call them names or anything.
Right. So the person that I believe is on the fence, he's a councilman named Frank Sweeney. He actually did vote to put the emergency ordinance on the agenda, or to hold this special session, but he said that he was not for an emergency ordinance. He would rather see the city come out with a strong statement, encouraging businesses, encouraging people to, do the right thing, mask up if that's what your thing is, or maintain social distancing, don't party too much, keep your group size limited. So he's more on the voluntary side of trying to do anything. He's not really so much on the enforcement side of an ordinance, going that far. So that's who's on the fence. There's other ones, Andy Fury, he actually said in the special session that, he's in the food and beverage industry. He knows how it hurt the food and beverage industry earlier in the spring when all the lockdowns and restrictions happened. So he was like, no, we don't need to do this. Another one, Ryan Hennon, he didn't say much. He just said, no, I don't want the special session. So don't really know where he stands. The 3 members that are I call hardcore, is the first one would be Steve Quinnell. He was I don't know if you saw the LA Times article that came out about the city of Whitefish. Did you see that, Jim?
I really don't watch I don't read the LA Times, but
yeah, I didn't either. It was floating around social media, but the LA Times came out, did an article, about the city of Whitefish and all kinds of stuff. But he was the guy that was on the picture of their cover of their story. So
I know they've got a lot of press because there's apparently Richard Spencer, is that the guy's name? Apparently he's I don't know, like a right-wing bomb thrower apparently, and he's from there, and his organization is from there. I've seen that. I've seen him reported on the news, according to Whitefish, but I don't know the guy where he's at. He may even be here in Whitefish anymore, for all the heck I know. But that's the only thing I've really seen in any national news is this. I don't even know what he is. Even they call him whatever label they give him. He's apparently a right-wing guy. I don't really know him. Yeah, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
No idea. No idea who you're talking about. And then the other 2 that are very pro ordinance for restrictions are Rebecca Norton and Ben Davis. So I don't know if you can sway them, but those are the 3 that are for. Andy Fury, Ryan Hennon, they're against it, and Frank Sweeney's on the fence. So just send your comments, and tell them what you think. They read them all, and the more the better. And maybe they won't do these. I see a lot of this stuff as like, man, one of them, the last one, like houses of worship. That's how getting into constitutional issues, even for a liberal, or somebody that like Frank Sweeney, he's probably middle of the road. He's probably looking at that saying, really? We're going to do that?
Well, I spoke to someone in Michigan, which is where I'm from, and I know you're familiar with that Michigan as well, whose mother had passed away from a congestive heart failure. Didn't have insurance. The daughter didn't have insurance. My mom spoke to the woman, and she said she went to the hospital, of course, after her mother had passed. Didn't have the money to pay the bill, and they told her at the hospital, if you just claim that she had COVID, it's all paid for. You don't have to pay anything. She's like, what do you mean? Well, if you just claim that she had COVID, then you don't have a bill, it's all covered, no problem, you don't know anything. So here she is. She doesn't have any money. She doesn't want to get slapped with a who knows how many multi-$1,000 bill that she can't pay. So she's like, okay, if you think she died of COVID, if that's going to save me 20 grand, mark it down as COVID. How many times has that happened? I was trying to get the woman on my show. How many times has this happened, Tom? You think they just figured it out with her? I think she's the only one? No, man. This is going on everywhere because the government's doling out the cash. They're doling out the cash to these people when they claim it. So you have the whole premise of it. The whole thing is probably in some areas is a straw man. Now, is it as bad as they say? Probably not. Is it still out there at some cases? Apparently, there are people that get it, and I know that apparently some people have passed away. And I say apparently because I don't trust anything these people tell me, man. They lie as a rule, right? They lie as a rule. I don't believe anything the government says, pretty much, especially when the government's giving you the numbers. You can assume they're lies. But that's my commentary on that, Tom. Over to you.
Yeah. Well, you know the old adage, right? How do you know the government's lying? When their lips
mouth is moving, right? Their lips are moving, right?
Yeah. I don't believe hardly anything the government says, but let me just give your listeners some talking points if they want to contact the city of Whitefish. And also keep in mind, these are talking points that you can use generally for any like that. If you're writing about the health board, if they're going to consider any more restrictions in the future, or even if the city Kalispell decides to do it, which I seriously doubt that they will, because I've talked to some of the counselors there. They're not even considering any of this stuff. But here's some talking points you can use with the city of Whitefish. One thing you can mention is tell them that there's no need to do these restrictions because the governor's already cracking down on businesses, as we saw last week. Mention that. Tell them that the Majestic Arena has already voluntarily canceled all their large events for the rest of the season or rest of the year. And what that does is that tells you that self-policing works. Now, I don't agree with the Majestic closing down, but look, I'm all about freedom and independence. They're a free business. They can do what they want. And if that's the decision that they made, then I support them in that. I don't like it, but that's their decision, and I'm not going to complain about it. So self-policing works. They didn't need government intervention to shut them down. Businesses would be, this is a very important point for people to knock home and to hammer home on these city councils. They're all about tax base, okay? It's all about the money. Tell Whitefish that they're going to be losing out on resort tax money, sales tax. Tell them that if they do this to businesses, they could lose, their revenue is going to go down, it could hurt them financially. What does that do? If they have to move out of the city, they lost their tax base. See, that's what the city council has to do. They have to protect their tax base for fixing roads, for paying for city services. Stuff like that. That's what you mean by tax base.
Has anybody? Let me hit you this. Let me ask this question: has anybody found out where Gogan stands on all this? Because he owns what? He's got businesses in half of Whitefish. If this guy pulls out, they're going to be in some big trouble because he owns a lot of stuff. I'm sure he has quite a bit of influence. Do you think? Have you heard anything about what Gogan? I'm talking about Mike Gogan. Anything? Do you know anything about him or how he feels about it?
No, I have no idea. No idea. Well, he's got deep pockets, so he can probably afford to, pay his employees.
Well, Mr. Gogan, if you want to stand up for liberty and this broadcast ends up coming across your desk, put some pressure on the Montana, on the I'm sure it's a Whitefish City Council, because you can do it. You are probably one of the few that could put that kind of pressure on them to get them to back off, unless you're a masker, and then I guess you'll probably agree with them. Go ahead, Tom. We just got a couple minutes left here.
Yeah, I'll just cover these. So another one would be consider the mental well-being of the business owners and workers alike due to loss of patrons and revenue if you do these restrictions. Where's the science? Ask them for the science to justify these restrictions. We got to go by science. We can't just go by feeling and emotion. It's got to be science. And the Montana Code Annotated actually talks about that. And it's actually in Title 50, 51, 102, or 105.2 Echo is where it says you got to use the best available scientific evidence when you exercise health powers. Another one would be religious freedom issues are at stake. Where is the compelling government interest? They always like to use that. Lawyers do. It's actually compelling government interest. There's got to be a compelling government interest in order to limit your freedom and liberties. Why would schools? Oh, that's another thing. They actually exempt schools and childcare facilities from all these restrictions. Granted, it's Friday night, it's Friday and Saturday, but why would you exempt schools and childcare facilities? If you're looking at it constitutionally, that's an unequal treatment under the law. And another thing, and this is something that they actually talked about in their working session, and they stressed, how are we going to enforce this? They can't. They've already admitted they cannot enforce this. They don't have the police officers. They don't have the health inspectors. They don't have the will to go through every business in downtown and try to enforce this. They just don't have the people to do it. So what they're relying on is they're relying on people to do it anyway, to self-enforce this. So
yes,
that's some of the talking points that people can do. Talking to Whitefish. I didn't get to any of the other things that I wanted to talk about. But
we'll have you back
talk
on.
About those another day.
Yeah, we'll have you back on, Tom. We'll have you back on. We so much appreciate all you've done and the work that you've done. Especially work that you've done here in Flathead Valley. And I know you've been an inspiration to others to get up and start doing their own thing. And really, that's what it's going to take, folks. It's not just going to take Tom. It's not going to take Jim. It's not just going to take Brenda, who was on earlier, or these handful of legislators that called in today, these half dozen legislators. It's going to take every one of us. Look in the mirror. That's the person right there. Don't wait for headquarters to call you, right? President Trump's not going to send you a tweet and tell you to get moving. It ain't going to happen. It's up to you. Look in the mirror, and that's the person that has to take action. That's the person that has to take action. Tom, anything you'd like to say before we close out the show?
No, just encourage people to get involved however you can. I mean, if that's just behind a keyboard, then you can do it. You can send emails and stuff like that, but whatever feels comfortable for you, but just get involved. Thanks a lot, Jim.
Thank you. We're just out of time, folks, and we so much appreciate all of our guests today that's on the show, and we'll have Tom back on again to go over. This is an ongoing battle, folks. This is not going to end here when this election's over, and this is you have to freedom is not free. You have to constantly be on guard against those that want to take it from you. So, Tom, thanks so much for joining us here today. We're just out of time, folks. Appreciate all of our guests being here, and we'll be back tomorrow with more great Montana news here on Montana Gazette Radio. Until then, this is James White for Montana Gazette Radio saying bye now.